Hey, what's up guys, it's your boy KCM What Ifs. Today we are gonna be reading The Turn of a Hero, or What If Naruto Left Jiraiya and Betrayed Konoha. So sit back, relax and enjoy. Currently on top of the cliff where Naruto and the rest had been just over less than an hour ago, overlooking the building where the summit as well as the fighting was taking place, Black Zetsu chuckled to himself, whatever it was. The point of his chuckle was not one of amusement, although that was a small part of it. No, the point of his chuckle was that of purpose of what had just happened. It seems as if it all worked out just like you hoped it would, Madara. Black Zetsu had sensed the arrival of Madara's chakra a few minutes ago, with the only explanation being that Kabuto brat had indeed summoned him. There was the small possibility of Naruto being responsible for that, but Black Zetsu really doubted that. For reasons unknown to Black Zetsu, Naruto had not yet attempted to summon Madara. Why was that? Once again, Black Zetsu did not know. Of course, the original plan had been for the Nagato brat to have had summoned Madara with the Geto, Rinne Tensei, but Black Zetsu really doubted that Tobi would have gone through with it, since Madara himself had shown disapproval of him, favoring Obito more. That had been one of the reasons for Tobi going down the path that he had. After all, Madara was like Tobi's creator, Tobi's own father in a sense. And he had no faith in Tobi. Very common psychological breakdown in the world, unfortunately. That had been a major reason for Madara to have given up his Rinnegan like he had. Finding a true Uzumaki is hard these days. They, beside the Senju and the Uchiha, were the only ones that could handle the Rinnegan. The other reason for Madara to have given his Rinnegan to Nagato was for Nagato to become sort of like a test for Naruto. And Naruto passed with flying colors. Of course, that was nothing for the true challenge that Naruto needed to overcome. And this right now was the beginning. Black Zetsu smirked, an act highly unusual for him, but he couldn't help himself. He was going to enjoy watching this. Now let's see if you've already surpassed Madara, Naruto. Gaara stood with his arms crossed and with an impassive look on his face, all the while looking directly at both Mei and A. The cork on his gourd, made out of entirely of sand, was forced open as sand began to come out from inside the gourd. Mei smirked to herself as she gazed at the young Kage, bringing one of her hands to her lips and placing a finger on her lips. It seems that you want to interfere after all. You are of no concern to me, replied Gaara in an almost monotone voice. But if you insist on getting in my way to my true target, then I have no choice but to remove you then. Mei raised an eyebrow. Pretty confident, aren't you? But let me guess, your true target is Naruto, isn't it? She asked, although it came out more as a statement rather than a question. Yes, Gaara simply answered as his sand began to surround him. On his right, Temari prepared her fan, while on his left Kankuro brought out some sort of puppet whose face was covered by a hood, although one could see a few strands of pure red hair sticking out. Mei humphed at the redhead's answer. That's pointless, and I'm sure that you know it as well. Naruto cannot be talked out of his goal. Not anymore. The only way is to stop him by force. If that's what it takes, then I'll do it, retorted Gaara with his usual calm face. Mei shook her head. That's also impossible. I may not know of everything that he's capable of, but from what I have heard, it's enough. You don't stand a chance against him. But if you were to join him, you could dash. I will not, interrupted Gaara with his own shake of his head. Naruto saved me from my own darkness. He seems to have forgotten everything that he once believed in though. But I'll help him to see the light once again. I'll be the one to save him this time. Mei smiled slightly at that. As honorable as that is, that's also simply impossible. You may not see it yet, but I can tell that his darkness is just simply too big for it to stop. Your only choice is to kill him, and even then I don't think that you can accomplish that either. I won't know until I try, will I? Responded Gaara, as then he shot a wave of sand towards both Mei and A, along with their respective guards. A was in front of the group in an instant, his lighting armor activated as he blocked the sand with just his hands. "Temari," said Gaara as he glanced at his older sister. Temari nodded as she brought her fan forward. "Wind style, Okakimi." A multitude of extremely sharp blades of wind headed towards A as Gaara pulled his sand back. A for his part didn't even flinch as the attack hit him, not having any effect thanks to his lighting armor. "What?" said Temari with a surprised look. He didn't even flinch. Gaara brought a wall of sand in front of them the next moment as A was in front of them, his fast back as he brought it forward, clashing with sand in a clash of strength. "Fool," thought Darui with a shake of his head. No one is stronger than Reikage-sama in terms of strength except for the Sennin Tsunade. Just like Darui predicted, A's fist was currently pushing forward to the sand. Kankuro brought his puppet upward, intent on distracting the Reikage for at least a moment. "Oh no you don't," said Darui as he rushed forward, intent on supporting his boss. Darui jumped upward to intercept Kankuro's puppet with his sword, only for it to be blocked by a blade coming out of one of the puppet's hands. "This is why I hate puppeteers," thought Darui with an internal sigh as he continued trying to push the puppet back. Too many damn surprises up their sleeves. Too dull. "It seems that they might need assistance," said Mei as she took a step forward and looked towards her right. Chojuro. The young blue-haired glasses-wearing swordsman nodded shyly as he rushed in to support the Reikage who was still pushing forward through the wall of sand. He also jumped upward, bringing his sword forward. "Hiramakari Kaiho. Wind style, Daitapa." Chojuro's blade connected with Temari's counterattack, but was pushed back in surprise as Temari was in front of him in an instant, hitting him dead on with her fan in his stomach. Gaara raised his hands slightly, intent on pushing back the Reikage. Suna Shigure. A looked up to see a cloud of sand above him, stopping him from his attack for a moment, only for him to look down to his feet the next second to see sand holding them. "You fell for it," stated Gaara as he brought the cloud of sand downward, only for the Reikage to disappear from the spot the next second. Gaara wasn't able to ponder as to where A went as he was forced to jump out of the way of a wave of lava that landed where he had just previously been. "Gaara," said Kankuro as he glanced behind him for the moment. "Oi, don't forget me," said Darui as lighting began to surround his blade. Seeing this, Kankuro pulled his puppet back, something which Darui took advantage of. Using his opponent's retreat to his momentum, Darui went in straight for Kankuro himself. The puppet wouldn't mean shit without the puppeteer. Kankuro tilted his head to his right, dodging the sword, or so he thought. As he jumped back to make some distance between him and his opponent, he noticed a cut on his right cheek. "What?" thought Kankuro in surprise. "I thought I dodged it." "It's really hard to dodge lighting you know," said Darui as he appeared behind Kankuro in midair. "Shit!" exclaimed Kankuro in his mind as he looked back to see Darui bringing his sword forward. Having no time to bring his puppet to his side for defense, Kankuro was stabbed right through his right side of his stomach, at least having dodged a major injury. Seeing this, a small smirk appeared on Darui's face. Not bad puppeteer. He was suddenly on the defensive, however, as a gust of wind covered the area, blinding his eyes for a moment as he landed a few feet away from where Kankuro fell. A fatal flaw as Temari appeared behind him, fan raised upward as she prepared to smash him just like she had done with Chojuro. "Darui," said C as he ran up to them, hands together. "Raigen Reikachu." It was Temari's turn to shield her eyes as a pillar of light emanating from C blinded her. Using the opportunity given to him by his partner, Darui was able to strongly sidekick Temari on her left side before she could figure out that it was a genjutsu, sending her flying backwards right into a wall. "Thanks man," said Darui while holding his sword on his left shoulder as C stood beside him. "That Suna Kunoichi is way too dull for my taste." C merely sighed at his partner for using the same word in every sentence, even if it didn't apply. "Don't mention it." Temari, thought Kankuro, kneeling and holding his right stomach side where Darui had pierced him. It's numb thanks to that lighting chakra of his. Oh, said Darui as he noticed the still conscious Kankuro. It seems that you're not out just yet, puppeteer. It's best if we will see them now, stated C while glancing at the wall where Temari was kicked through by Darui before turning towards Kankuro. Their Kazekage seems to be siding with Konoha and not us. Darui merely shrugged. I don't really care. C sighed. Of course you don't. Kankuro scowled as he shakily stood up. I'm not done just yet, you bastards. Gaara could only glance behind him to see the situation that his siblings were in. It's just like Mito-san said Mei with AO behind her. Chojuro was still on the ground, not being able to get up just yet from the hit that Temari had given him. You don't have a chance of winning. Gaara's sand started to surround him once more as he turned to look at Mei. And like I said, I won't know until I try. I still have hope. Mei could only sigh. Talking to you is pointless. Erobo. Gaara could only widen his eyes as they appeared on his right, still in his lighting armor and with his elbow thrusted forward towards Gaara. Ugh. Gaara flinched in pain as A's attack managed to penetrate his sand defense, albeit not entirely, but the attack still hurt like a bitch. He was sent flying back a few feet before using his sand as an anchor, sticking to the ground. He panted and flinched again in pain as he touched the spot where A had managed to hit with his attack, kneeling on the ground. A stood there, calmly looking at Gaara with an expressionless look on his face. Mei calmly walked up to stand beside A once more, O standing behind the two. You can't win against both of us, stated Mei while shaking her head again. Your bodyguards are close to losing as well. Just give up. Gaara wordlessly stood up, holding back another flinch of pain. I will not give up, he stated as his sand began to move once more. Mei sighed. Very well. If that's your final decision. Gaara merely stared at them before sending his sand towards them once more. In another part of the building, two blurs could be seen as they clashed with one another, second after second within an occupied average-sized room. A few moments afterwards, the two blurs stopped on opposite sides of the room, one grinning while the other one stood with a calm look. This is good, said Kushina as she took her Akatsuki cloak off since it was getting in her way at the moment. I can see why you're the leader of the samurai, old man. Miun didn't respond to the jab at the reference of his age since it was pointless. He was old, plain and simple. You're not a joke either, Uzumaki Kushina, replied Miun calmly, just like the look that he currently had on his face. Kushina raised an eyebrow at him. You know me? She asked him. Of you, corrected Miun as he got into a stance to attack Kushina or defend an attack from her. You were highly famous in your kenjutsu in the Third Shinobi War, nicknamed to be the female version of Namikaze Minato except with a sword with your skill and speed with it. Now that caused a surprised look to appear on the redhead's face. She hadn't known that. But the surprised look didn't last, however, as it was soon replaced by a grin that threatened to split her face in half. Oh yeah, I'm awesome, she thought to herself. I am surprised though, continued Miun, that you would side with this Uzumaki Naruto in doing what he's doing. It seems to me that he's nothing but a criminal except that he's trying to achieve something entirely ridiculous. That statement from the gray-haired samurai caused Kushina's excitement to die off, only for it to be replaced by anger. Kushina lowered her head as her hair shadowed her eyes. I wouldn't talk about something that you obviously have no clue about, Miun, she stated with a threatening undertone. Miun took a step back in surprise as he could sense the anger coming from the female Uzumaki. One moment ago she was all hyper and booming with excitement, the next she's all dark and threatening. What the hell? Is this about the attack that wiped out the Uzumaki clan? Asked Miun. Of course he knew about it. But that had been a while back. Also not a reason for her to have any anger towards Konoha. If anything, she should be trying to go after Kumo, or Iwa, or Kiri, or all three. Right? Kushina chuckled, her head still lowered. Like I told you, You absolutely have no clue as to what is going on. So, just don't say anything that you will regret later. Miun didn't respond to that, not that he had to, as he was forced to block a strike from Kushina's sword as the redhead was in front of him in an instant, looking at him with a fair amount of hatred in her eyes. He didn't have time to dwell on it either, as Kushina aimed for a low strike with her knee, only for it to be met head-on with Miun's own. Miun flinched slightly as he felt his knee sting from the blow. The woman had raw power, all right. Kushina then jumped back, Miun going after her the next. Seeing this, the redhead leaned back as Miun came at her with his sword thrusted forward. Using his momentum against him, Kushina brought one of her legs up to kick the sword off Miun's hands, succeeding. Miun's sword was kicked off his hand and up to the ceiling, where it stayed, implanted. Miun brought his now sword-holding hands to his side to block a strike from Kushina's other foot, said redhead, using her right arm to support her body. With her other hand that was holding the sword, she brought it forward intent on cutting down Miun, having plenty of momentum to back her up. Miun had a pained look on his face as Kushina's sword managed to cut through both of his wrists, as he still had both of his hands upward to offer some protection. Using this to her advantage, Kushina brought her other foot that had kicked Miun's sword off his hands to hit the said swordsman on the same spot where her other foot had tried before. Miun was hit back a good distance away, his pained look increasing from the force of Kushina's foot that had hit him. Kushina calmly stood up into a standing position, a calm look on her face, the complete opposite of what it had been a couple of minutes ago. "This is just the beginning, old man," said Kushina as another grin appeared on her face, although this one was darker than her previous one. "You will be begging for me to kill you afterwards." "Killing me will only cause the samurai to join Konoha," replied Miun as he too got into a standing position as well. Kushina shrugged. "Does it look like I care? No matter who joins, Konoha already has its fate sealed. I still don't see why your hatred is only directed towards Konoha," said Miun, trying to not move his wounded wrists too much for the moment. "That's also none of your concern," retorted Kushina. "But if you must know, we haven't forgotten about the other villages. Konoha is just our primary target for many reasons. So they're also planning on attacking the rest of the shinobi villages," thought a troubled Miun. "These are more than just criminals." "Now," said Kushina as she twirled her sword before pointing it towards the injured Miun, "shall we continue, leader of the samurai?" Miun didn't respond. Instead, he appeared upside down on the ceiling, grabbing his sword and sticking it out of the ceiling, all the while trying to ignore the pain that he was feeling coming from moving his injured wrists. Not saying anything more, Kushina rushed towards the awaiting Miun. Tsunade could only scowl as she looked at her grandmother's back as she continued to chase her through the many corridors of the building. "When are you going to stop running?" screamed Tsunade at her. Mito for her part merely glanced behind her to see the furious face of her granddaughter, causing her to shake her head. "Still can't control that anger of yours, can you?" Mito thought to herself before turning her head forward. Tsunade scowled again before narrowing her eyes. "I'm done playing your game, grandmother." With that thought in mind, Tsunade focused her chakra to her feet to give her an extra push to propel her forward. And it did just that. Sensing danger, Mito looked back to see an incoming and smirking Tsunade towards her. Mito also smirked before doing a tiger seal that pushed her down towards the ground at the last second before Tsunade could tackle her. Scowling again, Tsunade stopped herself on one of the walls, causing a spider web to appear on it thanks to all that chakra that she had pushed to her feet. "Impatient, aren't you?" said Mito with a chuckle as she released the tiger seal that she had been holding. Looking down at her, Tsunade raised an eyebrow. "What did you do to make yourself be pushed down?" Mito chuckled. "I'm sure that you must be familiar with seal-based weights, correct?" Understanding dawned upon the busty blonde Hokage. "I see, so that seal was to activate them, which pushed you down to the ground because of the force that they inflicted upon you." Mito nodded. "Exactly. But enough of that. If you're in that much of a hurry for me to teach you a lesson like I did last time, then let's not waste any more time, why don't we? Tsunade merely jumped down from the wall to land in front of her amused grandmother in the hallway. You? Yes, said Mito with an amused raised eyebrow. Toying with her granddaughter brought much amusement to her, it would seem. Tsunade's hands turned into fists. Just why won't you understand that what you're doing is completely insane? Mito sighed in annoyance at that. I thought that we had already established this. Talking is not going to work on any of us. Not to mention that we will not stop what we're doing. It's completely late for that. You didn't answer my question, exclaimed Tsunade, losing her composure. Mito raised an eyebrow. Really? I thought I did, but oh well. But you seem to misunderstand as well, thinking as if I'm the leader behind all of this and that changing my mind will stop everything. Now that stopped Tsunade on her tracks. What do you mean by that? She asked. Mito shook her head. Really, Tsunade, I expected for you to be sharper than this. But I'll spell this out for you. The leader behind all of this as well as the driving force is Naruto, and not me or anyone else. What? Exclaimed Tsunade in shock. Do you seriously expect me to believe that? That the same brat that dash? No, interrupted Mito with another sigh. That's also something that you yet don't seem to comprehend. It's just like Naruto told you, he's not the same person that you once knew him as to be. He's not the ignorant little child that would just simply take things with a cheerful smile. He's changed. So, this Naruto is the one that is behind all of this, not the one that you knew of 3 years ago. That Naruto is simply dead, plain and simple. Tsunade could only stare at her grandmother's shock, obviously not believing her. Sensing this, Mito could only sigh once more. Do you really not believe me? After all that he's done, and everything that he's planning to do? Or are you just lying to herself, hoping that this is nothing more than just a horrible nightmare? Tsunade stayed silent, not knowing what to say. Well, this is reality, stated Mito. This is the truth of things. The only question is what you plan on doing about it. If you think that I'm going to betray began Tsunade in a weak tone, only for Mito to interrupt her. They betrayed us, exclaimed Mito with a harsh tone. Are you forgetting that you also have Uzumaki blood running through your veins? Not only that, but the Senju clan is also related to the Uzumaki clan. I'm sure you know it as well. So Konoha basically betrayed all of us, including Hashirama. Tsunade could hold her head down, not knowing what to do. But she knew that her grandmother was right. Konoha had basically betrayed its very founders and acted as if it was nothing more than just a small mistake. No, not a mistake at all. As if it were the right thing. But an interesting thought came through Tsunade's mind, causing her to look her grandmother straight in the eyes for the first time. If your intentions are really to get revenge for the Uzumaki clan, why would you team up with Kiri, Kumo, and even try to with Iwa as well? They're the ones that actually took part in the attack. Like I told you, Naruto's the core in all of this, responded Mito calmly. He's the one that decided on that. And it's for a reason as well. But if you think that he's forgetting about that particular detail, then you're absolutely mistaken for my granddaughter. Konoha is just his prime target because of his already existing hate that he has towards the place. And I'm sure you know why. Of course Tsunade knew why. Naruto was a Jinchuriki. That statement said it all. So you're saying that he's basically going to go after the other villages afterwards? Asked Tsunade with shock and wide eyes. Possibly, replied Mito. But that's of no importance right now. As long as Konoha still stands, that is. Tsunade could only lower her head, not knowing what to say. But that was before she remembered something. Not all people are guilty, Haim. Jiraiya, thought Tsunade with sadness before looking at her grandmother once more. What you're doing is wrong, she stated as she stood straight and prepared herself into a combat stance. You're trying to kill innocent people, and I can't be part of that. Mito shook her head. Don't be trying to make Konoha look like the victim here, she stated while looking at her granddaughter with a cold gaze. Are you forgetting about the innocent people that were also killed in Yuzu that night? All the children that had their entire life ahead of them. Are you also forgetting about how they tried to do the same to Naruto as well, when they should have been grateful for what he had done? Are you forgetting about all of that? Tsunade actually flinched before responding, no I'm not. But if you think that you're any better by dash. Shut up, interrupted Mito with a cold tone. We already told you, we know that we're not any better by doing what we're doing. But it doesn't matter to us. We're simply getting even. It's human nature after all, isn't it my granddaughter? Tsunade could only grunt in pain as she was hit straight in the gut by none other than Mito the next second. Fast, thought Tsunade with wide eyes. Now that talking is over, why don't we go into the fighting? My precious granddaughter, said Mito with a cold gaze. Tsunade could only look at her grandmother in unrestrained sadness. Oi, are you serious about fighting all of them at the same time? Of course I am. This is exactly what I've been waiting for. Kurama merely chuckled. Well then, don't think about leaving me out of this. I also want a part in tearing Madara to shreds. Heh, will do. Cutting the conversation with his bijou for the moment, Naruto focused on his opponents that were in front of him. Wordlessly, both Madara and Izuna stepped forward, both inhaling at the same time. Fire style, Gokaku. Naruto smirked as the combined fireball from the two legendary Uchiha brothers headed towards him and his two partners. Both Yagura and Utakata took a step back, seeing the giant fireball heading towards them. This is nothing, stated Naruto as he took a step forward and raised one arm forward, absorbing the fireball thanks to his Rinnegan. He jumped back however as he was forced to dodge the emergence of wood from below the ground. Oh, nice reflexes, commented Hashirama with a small smile with one of his hands on the ground. It was Tobirama that rushed at Naruto afterwards, only for him to duck downward to dodge a kick from Yagura. I've always wanted the chance to fight Unidame, stated Yagura as he stood in front of Tobirama. The only man able to generate water from the air itself, Senju Tobirama. It's an honor. Tobirama merely humphed before rushing towards the Sanbai Jinchuriki, engaging him in taijutsu. Naruto landed as he grabbed both incoming kicks from both Madara and Izuna, but then disappeared in a dark flash as Minato appeared behind him in a yellow flash, the Hiraishin kunai in his hand. Appearing above on the stands, Naruto raised an eyebrow as he looked at Kabuto who was standing behind Sarutobi. So it seems that you've equipped them with weapons as well, Kabuto. Kabuto smirked. But of course. I've come prepared. Naruto couldn't retort as an entire tree appeared behind him, Hashirama standing on top of said tree, hands together. Gasoju. Naruto could only curse as two tendrils emerged from the ground and shot towards him. Fire style, Goka Makyaku. Naruto stared at both of his sides, seeing the attacks coming as well as Minato appearing behind him in another yellow flash, holding him in a deadlock. I'm so sorry Naruto, said Minato, but this is it. For you maybe, retorted Naruto. Holding on to me was a mistake. Naruto then closed his eyes momentarily as the attacks hit both him and Minato. Yagura's eyes widened before he grunted in pain as Tobirama delivered a powerful kick to his stomach as he was pushed back a good distance as a result. You shouldn't drop your guard when you're fighting me, stated Tobirama, or else you will die. Utakata was currently crouching, his bubble blower currently brought to his lips. Oi, did he dash? No, interrupted Rokubi. Just watch. When the smoke cleared, Madara raised an eyebrow in satisfactory surprise. So Mikoto did as I instructed then, he thought with a small smirk. Hashirama could only sigh. So it's not going to be easy then. He muttered. Oi, brother, said Izuna beside Madara, just how is this dash? Just watch Izuna, interrupted Madara. Is this Naruto-kun? Thought Sarutobi from in front of a smirking Kabuto. As the smoke cleared, an unharmed Naruto could be seen as well as a totally injured Minato whose arms had been ripped to shreds as well as one leg, causing him to let go of Naruto. But that wasn't all. Surrounding Naruto was unmistakably his Susanoo, stage 1. The color was a mixture of both black with red lines running through it, as well as both of its eyes being red. The face resembled that of a fox, but it looked even more demonic than that. It had sharpened fangs coming out of its mouth and had a black energy sword on its right hand. Naruto's Eternal Manjikyu focused on Madara's own Eternal. Naruto's Eternal was still made up of the red four-bladed shuriken with the back being black. But something else was added. Within it the four-bladed shuriken, a black pyramid-like shaped figure was present occupying its three sides within 3 or 4 of the shuriken blade. So this is your Eternal Mangekyo, stated Madara in a whisper, but Izuna who was next to him heard it. The Eternal Mangekyo, thought Izuna, turning his attention towards Naruto. But how is this possible? Kabuto's snake-like tongue slithered out of his mouth. Experimenting on his body will be fun alright. Madara smirked as the ghostly blue energy began to surround him once more and transformed into his own Susanoo. Shall we see who's better? Naruto smirked as he stood facing Madara. I thought that you would never ask. Oi, don't forget about us, said Hashirama as his hands began to form hand seals at a rapid pace, moving on their own before he found himself trapped within a bubble. Oh? Hashirama raised an eyebrow before noticing Utakata who was a distance away. So it's you. That's not going to hold him, thought Madara before he focused on Naruto whose Susanoo's blade clashed with his own Susanoo's blade. Naruto frowned as Madara's Susanoo formed another blade on its other hand. What to do, he wondered to himself. Oi, I'm still here, remember? Naruto smiled as Kurama's chakra began to run through his chakra coils. Sorry, partner. As Madara's other Susanoo blade made to strike Naruto, a giant fox-like hand emerged from within the Susanoo, holding onto the blade. Oh, said Madara with a raised eyebrow and his arms crossed. Naruto smirked at him. I'm not going down that easily, Madara. Madara smirked as well. No, that would just be too boring if you did. I'm still here, said Izuna as his Sharingan began to change into his own Manjikyu, his Susanoo beginning to emerge as well. It actually reminded Naruto a lot like what Itachi's used to be, except that it was more of a darker red than Itachi's. Now, how will you handle this, Naruto? Thought Madara. Izuna's own Susanoo blade began to descend upon Naruto. Come on, thought Naruto in anger. Give me more power. Instead of becoming shocked, Madara actually smirked again as Naruto's Susanoo changed into its level 2 form, the Susanoo gaining more armor and another blade like his. The now second blade blocked Izuna's Susanoo's attack. Naruto brought his hands together, forming hand seals. Katan, Futon, Enpyu no Rappa. Madara actually took a step back as the powerful torrent of both wind and fire clashed with his Susanoo, actually creating a crack on its armor. Not bad, thought Madara before noticing that the attack still kept going. What? He didn't have much else to think as the attack broke through his Susanoo, hitting him. Madara, exclaimed Izuna in surprise at having seen his brother's Susanoo being broken like that. Now to deal with you, thought Naruto, turning his attention to Izuna. Izuna was brought down to his knees as the force of his Susanoo was attacked by both one of Naruto's blades and the extra giant chakra fox hand. My Susanoo won't hold, he thought worriedly. Oi, Kurama, thought Naruto. Sensing what his host wanted, Kurama grinned in anticipation. Let's do it. Izuna's eyes widened as Kurama in his Bijou form emerged from with Naruto's Susanoo, already preparing his strongest attack. By Jadama. Izuna's Susanoo was ripped to shreds, much like Madara's, and was blown back, his body tearing into pieces. mainly his arms flying one way, and his legs another. Both Sarutobi and Kabuto jumped on top of the now destroyed ceiling of the building, snow beginning to hit down upon them all. This is not how it was supposed to go, thought Kabuto while sweating a bit despite the cold weather. Naruto calmly walked up to the down Izuna whose body was regenerating already. Sorry, said Naruto, Rinnegan activated, but this is the end for you, Uchiha Izuna. Izuna actually smiled despite his downed form. It's no big deal to me. I'm already dead after all. It's too bad that I wasn't able to see what will happen though. Good luck to you, Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto merely took hold of Izuna's head, before ripping his soul out, and releasing it. It was fun fighting you, Izuna. Naruto then turned his attention to a kneeling Madara as his body began to regenerate. Not only that, but a fully regenerated Minato stood beside him. Minato could only stare at his son in shock. You? Naruto merely smirked. Yes. I'm this powerful father. More powerful than you ever were as well as faster. That's how I defeated you last time, wasn't it? Madara humphed while listening. So you're Namikaze Minato, he stated while glancing at him. I suppose I should take this time to thank you. After all, your involvement had a major part for having this become possible. Minato frowned as he looked at him. What are you talking about? Sealing Kurama into me, answered Naruto while looking at Madara. Kurama, repeated Minato with a raised eyebrow as well as earning a curious look from Madara. Naruto shook his head. Don't worry about that. But you should know, Madara, he began while looking at him, that I'm not your pawn. The reason I'm here is because I chose to be. Madara merely smiled as he stood up, his body completely regenerated. I never said that you were my pawn, did I? I also never said that you didn't choose to go down this path. But what I am saying is that your father having sealed Kyuubi into you made it become extremely possible for this to happen, as well as other things. What? Said Minato with wide eyes. You're saying that I'm the cause for having turned my son into this person. Madara gave him a glance. A major cause, not the only one. But yes, that is what I'm saying. A thud interrupted their conversation as they looked to the side to see a heavily injured Utakata trying to get up with Hashirama standing over him. Madara smirked. It's about time that you defeated him, Hashirama. He's slippery, replied Hashirama with a smile, especially with all those bubbles of his. So Utakata couldn't handle him, thought Naruto. That caused Kurama to snort. Were you expecting him to have had it? No, not really, answered Naruto honestly. Well, there you go then. Hashirama calmly walked up towards both Madara and Minato, standing beside them. Now, to continue, thought Naruto as he got ready. On the other side of the room, Yagura was panting hard while Tobirama stood a few feet away from him, a calm look on his face. So Utakata lost, thought Yagura, giving Utakata's downed form a glance. It was to be expected. He was up against Senju Hashirama after all, replied the Rokubi. Yeah, you're right, thought Yagura before turning his attention to Tobirama. From the rooftop, Kabuto smirked, gaining confidence again. Sarutobi could only look down at the fight, troubled. Naruto-kun. Let's see what you can do, Uzumaki Naruto, said Hashirama with a smile. Naruto could only sigh. One of the strongest shinobi of the world, smiling all the time like that. Kurama chuckled. In yet another part of the building where the Kage summit was taking place, another fight was occurring at the moment. Is that all you got, samurai? Said Rashi as he continued to dodge the attacks from Okasuk's blade. Okasuk for his part growled as he continued trying to connect with one of his attacks from his blades. Rashi, having grown tired of simply dodging, caught Okasuk's blade with one lava-coated arm, melting the sword instantly. What? Thought Okasuk in surprise before it turned into shock at feeling his stomach burn beyond belief. Looking down, he saw Rashi's other lava-coated arm going straight through his stomach much like a sword would do. But not only that. Thanks to the lava surrounding Rashi's arm, his entire stomach was melted along with surrounding body areas, leaving a big hole in his stomach. "This is it for you, samurai," stated Rashi as he retracted his arm, Okasuke falling to the ground as a result, dead in an instant. "How's Han doing in his fight?" wondered Rashi as he made his way to a nearby room where Han had gone to fight Kakashi. Nearby, things were not looking good for Kakashi as he desperately looked around the steam-covered room, his Sharingan being close to useless as a result for the moment because of this. "This is just like Zabuza's missed jutsu," thought Kakashi with sweat falling down his face. And it wasn't because of fear either. Being a veteran shinobi and having fought in the Third Shinobi War as a child, Kakashi was used to being in situations like this. So much that he didn't feel any fear at all. No, the sweat was because of the hot temperature thanks to all the steam present in the room. "I need to find him quickly," thought Kakashi as he looked around. He needed to see if Tsunade was alright. After that, it was off to find Kabuto and make him explain a lot of things. But first he needed to deal with the situation at hand. "Where?" thought a frustrated Kakashi as he continued to look around. "Right behind you." Kakashi's eyes widened as he turned his head back just in time to see Han's incoming fist towards him. When the fist connected though, Kakashi's body turned into a puff of smoke. "A shadow clone," thought Han as he looked around himself. "Very clever. Although I'm dealing with copycat Kakashi, so I suppose I shouldn't be too surprised." The sound of lighting behind him caused Han to turn his head back in an instant to see a rapidly approaching Kakashi heading towards him, his signature jutsu in hand. "Raikiri. Han, I've got this." From behind Han, 5 white tails emerged, shielding Han from the deadly attack. Kakashi's eyes widened once more. Of course, he's a Jinchuriki. He didn't get too much time to think as he jumped back to avoid the tails from grabbing him. "You're not going to be as easy to handle as I thought," stated Kakashi with his famous eye smile as the tails disappeared behind Han. The steam was also beginning to disappear, something that Han did not like at all. Han didn't respond as he prepared to attack Kakashi again, only for a vortex-like thing that appeared beside him to stop him. "What is it now?" wondered Kakashi. Out of the vortex came a smirking Obito as he looked at Kakashi. "Han, don't worry about this. He's my opponent now," stated Obito, the smirk still present. Han stared at Obito with a questioning gaze. "Why?" he simply asked. Obito shrugged. "Call it personal. Don't worry though, I'll repay you someday." Han didn't respond, merely stepping back to allow for Obito to fight, not really caring either way. Kakashi's eyes narrowed, having listened to what this individual had said. "What do you mean by personal? I've never met you before in my life." Obito chuckled at that while shaking his head. "Really? Because I remember you well, Kakashi," replied Obito while closing his eyes. When he opened them, his Mangekyo was active, making Kakashi's face turn that into shock, having recognized the said Mangekyo. He possessed it after all. "You can't possibly be." Obito merely smirked. Back with Naruto and the rest, Naruto could only stare at his 3 opponents, each being a legend in his own right. Madara humphed as his eternal Mangekyo activated once more. "It seems that I underestimated you, Uzumaki Naruto. But rest assured, that will not happen again." Hashirama glanced at him. "You seem to be too eager in this fight, Madara," he stated. "That's because I am," responded Madara while still looking at Naruto. "Why is that?" asked Hashirama. "You don't have to worry about that," replied Madara. "It's a good thing that Izuna is gone now though. I'm sorry for you to have been disturbed like that, brother." Minato could only shake his head. This is all just too confusing. Seriously, he had no fucking clue as to why all of this was happening. Naruto smirked as he bit one of his fingers, drawing blood. "Then let me make it clear for you. Right now I'm trying to destroy Konoha. And you, father, are standing in my way again just like you did before. What? Said Minato with another widened of his eyes. What do you mean that is your goal? Madara merely stood there with an impassive look on his face. Hashirama for his part had turned serious as well, his face devoid of any emotion. Naruto chuckled as he finished the last of the necessary hand seals. Exactly what I've said. My goal is to eradicate Konoha once and for all. And no one is going to stop me, not even you three. May I ask why you are trying to destroy Konoha? Said Hashirama with a calm tone. You can, said Naruto as he brought his hand down, but that doesn't mean that I will answer you though. A big cloud of smoke blocked Naruto from their sight for a moment, but it began to clear soon enough. Oh yeah baby. I'm finally free. Seeing the smoke, Gaara could only sweat as he had heard the last statement. Don't tell me that it's him, said Rokubi with a sigh. Who? Asked Gaara. Tobirama for his part had also turned his attention to the commotion for the moment. Up on the rooftops, Kabuto narrowed his eyes as he looked at the giant cloud of smoke. What is he up to? You'll see, replied the Rokubi with another sigh. Once the smoke had been completely cleared, the Ichibi, or Shikaku, became visible. Hashirama actually whistled as he looked up to the giant-tailed beast that was currently halfway outside, and halfway inside the building. Madara merely humphed again as he activated his Susanoo once more. Naruto, taught Minato. On top of Shikaku's head stood a smirking Naruto. Oi, Shikaku, said Naruto, catching the tailed beast's attention, go wild with those three down there, will you? Shikaku grinned as he saw who Naruto was talking about. I've found my targets. Time to kill the baby. Naruto smirked as he gazed down to meet Madara's eyes again. This time, Sharingan met Sharingan. Madara chuckled out loud as he gazed at the sand bijou in front of him, amusement clearly visible in his eternal Manjikyu-activated eyes. The Ichibi, is it? He said while looking up towards Naruto who was standing on top of Shikaku's head, a silver-haired individual having his arms crossed. You expect for me to be impressed by you having summoned the weakest of the bijou? He questioned with a smirk. Shikaku growled, having heard Madara's statement, obviously not liking the fact that said Uchiha thought that he was the weakest even if it might be true. I'll kill you, stated the sand bijou, having his right arm pointed down towards Madara. You'll be the first for me to kill. And then, I'm going for the rest, baby. Madara, his Susanoo activated, merely dropped his smirk as a serious look replaced it right afterwards, his arms also crossed. You can try, he replied. Naruto for his part merely turned to glance at both Hashirama and Minato, both standing a bit behind Madara. Shikaku will even this out, but not for long, he thought. Kurama snorted as he watched everything taking place. That lunatic is not going to last long against Madara, let alone with Hashirama present. I don't know if you've forgotten, but Hashirama can subdue us bijou. Damn him for being related to the old man. Naruto chuckled shortly, hearing the frustration within the bijou's tone. But no one could blame him. Being controlled was something that one appreciated, even if said individual was a bijou. I know that, replied Naruto with a slight shake of his head. I did pay a bit of attention in history class in that part, you know. I also did some investigation on past events during my training at your request. Kurama huffed at that. It was for your own good. You were so ignorant, and you still are. Wow, thanks. Don't mention it. Sensing danger, Naruto immediately cut off his link to his bijou to look down to see what coming out from the ground from underneath Shikaku's feet, clinging around said bijou's feet. Naruto turned to look at Hashirama having one of his hands on the ground again, but without one of the smiles that he had had before. Instead a serious look, close to emotionless, was present on the Shodai Hokage's face. Naruto smirked slightly at that. The attitude change must be because of me telling him of my trying to destroy Konoha. Shikaku growled again as he looked down towards Hashirama. This won't stop me. And true to his statement, the wood surrounding both of his feet was ripped apart as he merely took a step forward. Stronger than I anticipated, thought Hashirama. But it won't happen again. Naruto ducked his head to the side as a familiar kunai flew right where his head had been a second before, a familiar yellow flash accompanied less than a second later. Blocking Minato's Hiraishin kunai with his sword, Naruto looked straight into Minato's eyes, Sharingan eyes meeting Minato's blue eyes. You never would have imagined that this was going to happen, did you, Yondaime? Asked Naruto. No, I didn't, admitted Minato with a sad tone, before being replaced with the same serious look that Naruto had previously seen on both Hashirama and Madara. But at this point it's obvious that you're not going to listen to reason. So no matter how much it pains me, I will stop you, even if I have to kill you. Naruto smiled faintly at hearing that. Still putting the village before anything else, are you? But I suppose that's one of the reasons why I did look up to you when I was a kid, when I was ignorant. A momentary flash of obvious regret appeared on Minato's face. Using this to his advantage, Naruto kneed Minato in the gut, causing said blonde to hunch forward in pain. Naruto then proceeded to aim for a high speed only for Minato to disappear in another yellow flash to reappear on the other side of Shikaku's head. Naruto raised an eyebrow at this as he turned to face his father. When did he place Hiraishin seals here? Being too angry to notice the fight that was taking place on top of his head, Shikaku raised one of his arms into the air as he inhaled and his stomach expanded outward, and brought his arm down towards his stomach, pounding it. Wind style, Rankuden. Madara merely humphed as the compressed air ball came straight towards both him and Hashirama. Shikaku's attack was merely reflected by Madara's attack. Hashirama for his part had merely surrounded himself by strong chakra-filled wood spikes that had completely surrounded him, protecting him from Shikaku's attack. Is that all you got, Ichibi? Said Madara with a mocking present, his arms still crossed. Shikaku growled for a third time as he prepared to attack again, only for larger wood spikes to come out of the ground, surrounding both his feet and arms this time. You again, said Shikaku in frustration as he looked at Hashirama. Madara brought his hands together and weaved 3 hand seals as his eternal Manjikyu turned into the Rinnegan, catching Hashirama off guard as he noticed this particular fact. How does he? Still within his Susanoo, Madara raised both of his hands up into the air. Tengai Shinsei. Both Naruto and Minato appeared in the middle of top of Shikaku's head in a dark and yellow flash respectively, sword and kunai clashing respectively once again. Before they could continue, however, they both glanced up into the sky to notice an enormous object that suddenly appeared coming through the dark clouds. Is that a meteorite? Thought Naruto with a raised eyebrow. What is this? Said Minato with wide eyes. Madara. Thought Naruto as he turned his attention towards the fighting below to see Madara with both his hands raised up into the sky with similar ringed pattern eyes. Rinnegan. You might want to focus on that thing up in the sky, suggested Kurama. Naruto smirked as he faced his father, who was still looking up at the sky. Sorry Yondaime, but it seems our fight has been interrupted. Minato turned to look at his son to see black energy begin to surround him. His Susanoo, thought Minato as he instantly disappeared into another yellow flash. Shikaku could only look up into the sky. Not fair, he screamed in frustration. Hashirama brought his hands together, ready to protect himself. He could ask questions later. Wood style, Hobi. A dome made completely out of wood surrounded Hashirama. Madara for his part merely jumped up onto the roof where both Kabuto and Sarutobi were standing. I take it you have a way to protect us from this? Asked Kabuto. That won't be necessary, exclaimed Naruto, Rinnegan activated, as he raised both of his just like Madara had. Much to everyone's surprise, the slow-coming meteorite stopped dead on its track. Shikaku grinned as raised one of arms up into the air in a familiar B fashion. Yeah baby. WEH. Madara smirked. You stopped one of them, but can you stop the other one? Naruto raised an eyebrow until he felt something collide with the meteorite. Looking up, he noticed that another same-sized meteorite had clashed with the first meteorite. Naruto could only scowl as he noticed this fact, the impact causing the first meteorite to continue down its path. Minato appeared in another yellow flash in front of Naruto, a Rasengan in hand. Rasengan. The attack was immediately blocked by Naruto's Susanoo that had activated at the last second. Shikaku, said Naruto as he glanced down at said bijou. Waves of sand shot towards Minato from Shikaku's body, wrapping all around said blonde. Time to die. As the sand began to enclose on Minato, said shinobi merely disappeared in another yellow flash. Naruto scowled at this. Damn that Hiration of his. Wood style, Mokuryu. Naruto brought one of his hands in front of him, just in time to repel the wood dragon that was coming straight at him from below, courtesy of Hashirama. The end result was the wood dragon being smashed into pieces. Hashirama was then on the move, dodging multiple tendrils of sand as they came at him courtesy of Shikaku. Naruto then turned his attention to the meteorites in the sky. Kabuto smirked as he watched this. You two, he began, motioning towards both Madara and Sarutobi, attack him now while he's distracted. Madara shook his head. No, Kabuto turned to look at him with narrowed eyes.
What do you mean no? Exactly what it means, retorted Madara, focusing his attention on Naruto. Kabuto scowled as he brought his hands together into the ram's seal. Well, as long as I control you, you can't dash. He stopped his statement as his eyes widened, noticing that he couldn't control Madara. How? Madara didn't bother to respond. Naruto focused all of his power on the two meteorites in the sky. A few moments later, both meteorites were split into chunks, scattering everywhere and falling even faster.
Naruto turned his attention towards a smirking Madara as the debris began to hit their location. Just what are you after? Wondered Naruto as his Susanoo activated as the meteorite shards landed. Before impact. Back in another part of the building where Gaara was currently facing off against both Mei and A, things were beginning to look bad for the young Kazekage. Gaara panted hard in a kneeling position as he looked at both Mei and A. I can't take them both together at the same time. A was merely too fast for the redhead to dodge effectively, many injuries present on him to prove his point. And Mei had the one thing that was his natural weakness, which was water. And thanks to him not having a constant source of sand such as a desert to replenish his sand, most of his sand was becoming mud and not usable anymore. Of course he was able to make his sand unmuddy with his chakra, but that took up a lot of his chakra. And he was running out. I told you that this was the outcome, said Mei with a shake of her head. I'm not dead yet, retorted Gaara as he stood up, if barely. You can barely even stand, replied Mei with an amused look on her face. Really, watching the young shinobi in front of her was really too amusing, why with all that undying determination of his. A for his part merely took a step forward and then disappeared. Gaara brought up what little of his sand that he had left to his defense. Water style, Suijin Chu. Ack. Gaara grunted in pain as a dense curved torrent of water collided with what was the rest of his usable sand as well as managing to penetrate it as well, piercing his left side, causing him to go down in a kneeling position again. Mei merely smirked. Gaara, exclaimed Kankuro as he noticed this while trying to dodge Darui's sword strikes, although not effectively thanks to the injury that he had sustained earlier. Don't belittle me, puppeteer, said Darui in a rare show of annoyance as he noticed that Kankuro was not completely focused on their fight. Using this opening, Darui's grip on his sword tightened and disappeared only to appear in front of a shocked Kankuro, stabbing him right through said shinobi's chest. You should have been more worried about your own life, stated Darui, the look on his face going back to that of a guy that didn't give a shit as to what was happening. Kankuro didn't respond. His eyes merely closed as he fell to the ground on his back with a thud as Darui retracted his sword from Kankuro's chest. Seeing this, Gaara could only widen his eyes. But something else too. Something wet was rolling down his cheeks. A second later he realized that they were tears. He didn't get time to dwell on those thoughts as A appeared behind him, intent on ending his life as well. I guess this is it, thought Mei as she closed her eyes. Jin-tun, Genkai Hakuri. Immediately Mei's eyes snapped open as she looked to where A was to see a cube surrounding him with a sphere in the center. Tsuchikage, said Mei as she turned to look up into the air to see a floating Inoki. The cube began to expand only for it to begin to propel towards the center to where A was a second later. A second after that, the cube exploded with great force. That's one, said Inoki as he floated down to float next to the kneeling Gaara. Boss, said Darui with wide eyes. Calm down Darui, said C from behind him, hands together with his eyes closed. You know that Reikage-sama is much faster than that. And true to C's prediction, A reappeared beside Mei, completely unharmed. Inoki smirked at this. Still fast as ever, Reikage? A didn't respond at all. What are you doing here? Asked Mei with a frown. I would like to know this as well, said Gaara as he wiped the tears from his face. He could cry later if he wanted to and if he could survive this today. But now was not the time. Saving my own skin, that's what, retorted Inoki with a snort. I know for a fact that Yondame's brat will come after me. And with you two on his side, that would cause too many problems for my taste. Seeing that the Kazekage brat and Tsunade are fighting you right now, I thought that I might as well as join in to finish you off before you become even more of a nuisance to me later. Mei shook her head. Wrong move once again. You should have just enjoyed the last days that you had in your life instead of wasting it here today. I'll place my bets here, stated Inoki. Mei shrugged. It makes no difference at this point. You will die, plain and simple. It's just a matter of time. We'll see about that, replied Inoki. Before they could begin once more, someone interrupted them. Mizukage-sama, said Ao from behind both Mei and A, Chojuro also standing now behind him, his sword in front of him. What is it Ao? Asked Mei without turning around to face him. We have incoming objects hurling down from the sky, he answered, his Byakugan eye activated. What? Said Mei with a surprised look. That was the last thing that was said as the ceiling above them began to collapse. Mito was not a woman to be surprised easily. But with those that knew her personally, that didn't come as a great surprise. She was the kind of woman that got all the facts together before acting. Also with Madara having told her what basically the future could turn out to be, well, it left little room for surprise. The last time that she had been truly surprised had been when she had seen Tobi's corpse, but with much reason behind it. But at the moment she was truly surprised. One of Mito's main skills involved sensory, but not just any type of sensory. Unlike other sensors, she could detect negative emotions from anyone, surpassing the limitations of a regular sensory-type shinobi. And what she was currently sensing was definitely negative, alright. The Ichibi, thought Mito as she continued to dodge punch after punch from her granddaughter. But it wasn't just the Ichibi that she sensed. It was also... Mito's eyes widened as she barely managed to dodge another fast punch from Tsunade, jumping away to get a good distance away from Tsunade and to make sure that what she was sensing was true. Tsunade scowled as she directed chakra to her feet. Don't underestimate me. Mito was then sent flying through a wall courtesy of Tsunade, who had punched her in the face at an amazing speed. I hope that I didn't kill her, thought Tsunade as she looked at the partially destroyed wall. I still have things that I need to ask her. Really, to think that you would try to kill me. I'm rather sad, Tsunade. Tsunade could only sigh as she looked behind her to see Mito calmly standing there, although it seemed that her attention was focused elsewhere. Oi, don't ignore me, said Tsunade in anger, but Mito did just that. These chakra, thought Mito with a slight frown. They can't be you, Madara, Hashirama. Tsunade was prepared to rush at her grandmother again only for Mito to raise one of her hands, causing Tsunade to stop her rush and be on guard. Her grandmother was a dangerous individual, plain and simple. It seems our time has been cut short again, my granddaughter. Tsunade raised an eyebrow, not trusting her. What are you talking about? The building all around them began to shake violently at that point. This, answered Mito as she jumped onto one of the walls and began to run across it and back to where she and Tsunade had come from. Oh no you don't, said Tsunade as she followed behind her. If that Kabuto brat really did summon them, thought Mito in anger. She was pissed. And hell hath no fury like a woman's scorn, especially that of a redhead. Obito could stare at Kakashi in amusement, not that anyone could blame him. Is that you, Obito? Asked Kakashi with wide eyes. Ah, so you do remember me, said Obito with a chuckle. Well, I must admit that I'm rather touched. Kakashi then shook his head. No, this can't be real. You can't be real. The real Obito died years ago. Obito sighed, remembering that particular event. Yes, you're right about something. I did die. But I'm back from the dead. That doesn't even make any damn sense, replied Kakashi with narrowed eyes, preferring to believe that this was all just some sort of genjutsu. Obito shrugged. It kind of does if you have all the information, he replied calmly and added, and no, this is not a genjutsu, he stated, seeing as Kakashi had been in the process of dispelling how a genjutsu was dispelled. Well then how are you alive then? Asked Kakashi. Obito merely chuckled and shook his head at the same time. That doesn't concern you at all. But there is something that I want to ask you though. And that is, said Kakashi. Obito looked at Kakashi straight in the eyes, Mangekyo Sharingan activated. Why did you kill Rin that day? Kakashi's face turned to one of regret at hearing the question and being reminded of what he had done that day. That doesn't concern you at all, replied Kakashi after a while, using the same line that Obito had used with him. Oh, said Obito with a raised eyebrow before shaking his head. I suppose that's only fair. Fine then. I'll just beat it out of you then. Kakashi merely settled into a combat stance. No you won't. I don't know how you're doing this Iwa Jinchuriki, but I will not be defeated by this simple trick. Obito laughed at hearing that and pointed to the side to where Han was calmly standing. The big guy is over there, he stated before continuing. Besides, all Jinchuriki suck at genjutsu, period. Do you seriously believe that he could be so efficient at it to have even caught you, the great copycat, Kakashi? Please. He does have a point, thought Kakashi, but not relaxing in his stance in the slightest. I suppose it's long overdue that we have this match, Kakashi, said Obito while taking a single step forward. I suppose you could call this a test for me, to see if I've actually surpassed you since all this time. And you'll find that I'm more efficient in using my eyes. Kakashi didn't respond as Obito rushed at him. This would be an Obito-like thing to do, thought Kakashi calmly before he was on alert as 3 Fuma Shuriken appeared in front of Obito and headed straight towards him. Kakashi didn't have time to dwell as to how his opponent had done what he had done as he was forced to dodge all of the incoming shuriken. Kakashi dodged the first one to the side before bringing both of his hands down to the ground. Earth style, Doriyahiki. An earth wall emerged from the ground in front of Kakashi, blocking the other 2 shuriken, each of them embedding into the earth wall. Fire style, Gokaku. What, thought Kakashi as the fireball actually broke, burned, right through his earth wall, causing Kakashi to jump into the air to dodge the fireball, lest he be burned alive. Fire style, Bakufu Ranbu. Kakashi looked down below to see a massive vortex of fire that was spiraling progressively towards him at a great speed. No choice, thought Kakashi as his Sharingan transformed into his Mangekyo. Kamui. The vortex of flames was completely absorbed by Kakashi as he landed on the ground, completely unharmed. Well well, said Obito with a ghost of a smile on his face, it seems that you can control my eye very well, Kakashi. It also just saved your life. I think that you should be very grateful to me for having given you that gift, don't you agree? Kakashi visibly frowned under his mask. I have nothing to thank you for. After all, you're nothing more than a fake that was somehow created by Naruto or one of the others. Obito could only shake his head again. Still as stubborn as always, aren't you? But these eyes here should show you that I'm the real deal, stated Obito, referring to his Mangekyo. The real Obito lost his right eye that day when he died, replied Kakashi, and he gave me his other one. You have both when it shouldn't be possible. Even if the designs are the same, there's no possibility that you can be Obito. Just keep telling yourself that, retorted Obito as he rushed straight at Kakashi yet again. Only this time Kakashi did the same except with an all too familiar jutsu in his hand. Raikiri, thought Obito with an internal smirk as he and Kakashi were a foot away from each other. That's not going to work on me, Kakashi. Kakashi brought his right hand forward, his own original technique directed at Obito, intent on killing that fake. You're through, stated Kakashi as his Raikiri was but a mere inch away from Obito. Obito's face took the form of a smirk as Kakashi's Raikiri merely phased right through him. What, thought an alarmed Kakashi. No, you're through, said Obito as Kakashi completely faced right through him. Kakashi looked down toward his torso to see chains wrapped tightly around him. When did he, thought Kakashi as he turned to look at Obito's back. Your Kamui is imperfect, said Obito without turning to look at him. Mine, however, is not. It's as simple as that. We'll see about that, thought Kakashi as he focused his Mangekyo on Obito. Kamui. Obito could only chuckle as he turned his head back to look at Kakashi's surprised look. That's not going to work on me either. Kamui is my jutsu, not yours. Now, Obito took a step forward towards Kakashi. I will take my gift back if you don't mind. Kakashi narrowed his eyes on that. No way in hell was he going to allow for that to happen. With that in mind, he tried the substitution jutsu to try to escape from the chains but found that he couldn't do that either. What the hell, thought a surprised Kakashi with slight frustration. Obito chuckled again. Seems that you just figured out that you can't use any jutsu. That's because these chains are imprinted with chakra suppression seals. A handy tool, don't you think? Kakashi could only scowl as Obito stopped in front of him. Now, to take my eye back, said Obito as he brought one of his hands towards Kakashi's eyes. But before he could rip out Kakashi's Sharingan eye, the room around them began to shake. What is this, thought both Kakashi and Obito. Han for his part merely took to the exit of the room just as Rashi appeared at the exit or entrance from his point of view. What's going on? Asked Rashi as Han landed in front of him. Han merely shook his head, not responding. Instead he merely took running down one of the hallways. Seeing no other choice, Rashi followed him. Well shit, thought Obito as the ceiling above him and Kakashi began to collapse. On one of the lowest levels of the building, a massacre was currently taking place. A samurai massacre to be exact. Wow. Thought B he watched the fight, if it could be called that was taking place in front of him. The Hachibi chuckled. They're serious alright. B could only agree completely with his partner. A smirking Fu could be seen as she flew right past a squad of samurai, leaving a small trail of a sparkling substance that shined extremely bright, making the samurai go blind. Oi, what is this? Said one of the samurai as he looked around with the rest of the samurai, trying to find Fu, although their current blindness made it almost impossible. Just find the girl, said another one. Why, I'm right here, said Fu as she appeared in the middle of the samurai squad, armor active and wings flapping. The samurai had no time to react as a small tornado began to surround Fu, courtesy of her flapping wings. Said tornado blew the entire squad of samurai into pillars and walls, all either dead or close to that. I'm so fast now thanks to your wings, Chomei, thought Fu. This is but the beginning, Fu, replied Chomei as Fu directed her attention to the remaining samurai. In another part of the large room, Yujito could be seen disappearing and reappearing behind every samurai in the area, each dropping to the ground, dead, after she did so. This was thanks to her cat-like claws that she currently possessed. Yujito stopped her taijutsu attacks, however, as she stopped in a crouching position in front of a group of about 15 samurai. Get her now, said the apparent leader of this particular samurai group. Doing as their leader instructed, the samurai all swung their swords forward, their chakra projectiles heading towards the crouching Yujito. Yujito for her part smirked as she looked at this. Sorry, she thought, but it's gonna take more than that to stop me. Nazumi Kedama. A flaming ball of hair came out of Yujito's mouth, taking on the form of a flame-engulfed mouse, heading to clash with the samurai's attack. But before doing so, Yujito's attack split into individual and similar ablaze hairs and clashed with the samurai's attack, eradicating them and continuing heading towards the samurai. The samurai could only stand in shock as the individual's flame-covered hairs engulfed them all, causing them all to scream in pain as they were burned alive. The other remaining samurai could only back away, seeing as how their numbers were being rapidly depleted by two enemies nonetheless. This is suicidal, screamed one of them. We need to get out of here. Both Yujito and Fu stood in front of the remaining samurai, standing side by side. I guess it's time to finish this, said Yujito, making Fu nod, agreeing. Before that could come true, however, a loud rumbling noise above them caught the attention of all the occupants in the room. Oh, thought a curious bee, what is this? You might want to get out of this room, like now, suggested the Hachibi. Both Yujito and Fu received the same message from both Matatabi and Chomei respectively. Doing as instructed, the three Jinchuriki were all beside the next, taking off towards the exit of the room towards the higher levels of the building. The remaining samurai, they weren't so lucky. Outside the collapsing building in the snow stood a panting and kneeling Yagura. A few feet away stood Tobarama with his arms crossed and an impassive look on his face. I must say that you're stronger than I thought, stated Tobarama with some praise in his voice. But unfortunately this has to come to an end. He was really interested to see how things were proceeding with his brother and Madara. But after seeing those two meteorites and then seeing said meteorites be split into pieces by some unknown force, well, no one could blame him. Yagura smirked slightly despite his almost defeated state. I can say the same to you. But I'm not even close to being defeated yet, he stated as he stood up. Tobarama raised an eyebrow. What is that supposed to mean? He asked. Yagura chuckled as his body began to change, transformed into that of a turtle, or more specifically that of his bijou, the sanbai. Oh, said Tobarama with a small look of surprise. So you're a Jinchuriki as well, are you? He then smirked lightly as he gazed at the now giant three-tailed turtle in front of him. This will be more interesting than I thought. Present time. Back within the now completely destroyed room where the Kage meeting had once taken place, one Senju Hashirama appeared from within his wood dome-like structure that he had created before, not that it would have been needed. It seemed that he was immortal now, except if that Naruto boy did the same thing that he had done to Madara's brother, Izuna. But he wasn't going to let that happen, not just yet. He wanted answers from both Naruto and Madara, and damn it, he was going to get them. So you used that jutsu to defend yourself, did you? Hashirama looked to his right to see Madara landing beside him. How do you possess those eyes? Asked Hashirama, ignoring Madara's comment and looking at Madara's Rinnegan eyes. Madara humphed at hearing that. It should be obvious to you how I possess these eyes, Hashirama. He has your DNA, stated Naruto as he appeared from within the other side of the room through the smoke, interrupting Hashirama from saying anything. So you know, do you? Asked Madara as he turned his attention towards his fellow Rinnegan user. Naruto shrugged as he stopped walking. It was just a guess, really. But it seems that I was right. Hashirama could only look at his once best friend in shock. How did you dash? We've fought Hashirama many times, interrupted Madara. It wasn't that hard really. Some distance back on the far side of the room, Kabuto appeared within the many debris, a troubled look on his face. I can no longer control Madara, he thought, which was the source of his trouble for the moment. But how did he break free from my control? The Shinigami clearly said that he wouldn't be able to. He glanced to his right to see Sarutobi laying there on his back, currently in the process of regenerating. He won't be useful for now, he thought before focusing on where Naruto, Madara, and Hashirama stood. But I still have the Shodai and Yondaime Hokage, as well as the Nidaime. Although he's busy with the Sanbai Jinchuriki right now. Shinra Tensei. Both Madara and Hashirama merely watched as Minato, appearing right in front of Naruto, was pushed back by Naruto's jutsu with a great force. Ugh! Minato landed on the floor on his back right in front of both Madara and Hashirama. I've really had it with that Hiraishin jutsu of yours, Yondaime, stated Naruto with a serious look. Don't forget about me. The others merely looked back to see Shikaku becoming visible behind Naruto, although he was missing one arm and with an enraged look on his face. Using his only arm, he pounded his stomach once more. Wind style, Rankuden. You've outstayed your welcome, stated Madara as he brought one of his hands forward, Rinnegan activated and repelling Shikaku's attack. Hashirama for his part brought his hands together as Wood once more began to wrap tightly around Shikaku. Not this again, said Shikaku with frustration. Naruto for his part brought his arms together as well, forming hand seals at an alarming rate. Jiangu, Saishu Shijiki. Impressive, thought Madara as he appeared in front of Hashirama, his hands extended forward, to be able to combine 3 chakra natures into one single attack, but still. Shinra Tensei. Naruto scowled as Madara repelled his attack, defending Hashirama as a result. Ninjutsu will be useless here right now, thought Naruto. So I suppose Kenjutsu it is. With that thought in mind, Naruto rushed at Madara who merely stood there. Not very smart, said Madara as he rushed at Naruto as well except bringing one of his hands forwards again. Bansho Tenin. Naruto smirked lightly as he was pulled forward, straight towards Madara whose Susanoo activated. Naruto disappeared in a dark flash at the last moment, nowhere to be seen. That jutsu of his, thought Madara with a slight scowl, is starting to become annoying. Let me go so I can kill you, you bastard, screamed Shikaku as he began trying to shake the wood spikes that were surrounding him, but why wasn't he able to do so? You cannot escape, stated Hashirama as his right hand began to glow. This wood has been made specifically for you, Ichibi. You will not escape. Shikaku could only growl at this. Damn it, this was the same thing that had happened the first time that Hashirama had captured him all those years ago when he had still been alive. And now, he was being defeated in the same way. Damn that wood style of his. Wood style, Makyujin. Shikaku could only stare at Hashirama as a large statue-like creature made out of wood formed below Hashirama, bringing him into eye level with Shikaku as he stood on top of its head. Now, sleep, said Hashirama as he jumped off the statue's head and brought his glowing hand forward, pressing it into Shikaku's forehead. Hokage Shiki Jiju and Jutsukakuan Nit Ten Suishu. This is not fair, screamed Shikaku. I just got here. That was the last thing that was said as Shikaku's eyes closed. That takes care of the Ichibi, thought Hashirama, turning his attention to where Madara and Naruto were fighting. Both Naruto and Madara stood in front of each other, doing the exact hand seals as the other at the same time. As they finished, they both took a breath in. Fire style, Goka Meshitsu. Both Naruto and Madara released a massive stream of intense flames, each clashing with the other and trying to overpower the other. I will not lose, they both thought. Naruto narrowed his eyes as Minato was behind him in the next second, another Rasengan in hand. Rasengan. The attack was merely blocked by Naruto's Susanoo ribcage, repelling Minato's Rasengan, sending him flying back only to be caught by Hashirama's wood statue's hand, which in turn placed the blonde Hokage on top of its head where Hashirama was standing. That was a smart move, said Hashirama as he glanced down to see a kneeling and troubled-looking Minato. But it seems that he reacts faster than one can defend himself. Minato didn't respond. Both Naruto's and Madara's jutsu seemed to be even in power as neither could push the other back. Madara's eyes widened in surprise partially as another Naruto appeared in mid-air, a wind-style, Rasen Shuriken in hand. A clone, thought Madara. He's fast in his techniques, I'll give him that. Wind-style, Rasen Shuriken. The shadow clone Naruto threw the Rasen Shuriken straight towards Madara, who had to abandon his concentration on his fire jutsu for a second to activate his Susanoo once again. Said Susanoo merely used one of its swords to swing the Rasen Shuriken away up into the sky where it exploded. Using Madara's distracted state to his advantage, Naruto pushed more chakra into his attack, pushing Madara's fire jutsu back and engulfing the entire area into a sea of flames. Madara merely stood within his Susanoo, arms crossed as he watched this. Kabuto was on top of the burnt-out and destroyed roof, or what remained of it. This building really won't last much longer, he thought, sweating a bit. They aren't people, they're monsters. Sarutobi, who was completely regenerated and was at Kabuto's side once again, could only watch the fight in frustration. Why isn't he allowing me to take part in this, he wondered, glancing at Kabuto. I must be his bodyguard or something. Hiruzen really didn't like to be used the way that he currently was, but his discomfort could be put aside for the moment as there were more important things to worry about. Does Naruto-kun know about what happened with the Uzumaki clan? He wondered. And of course, then everything would make perfect sense if Naruto did, as to why he was doing all of this. But it also meant bad news as well. Naruto would no doubt try to destroy Konoha as a result, and of course that was bad in itself. Well, in his mind at least it was. He has to be stopped, thought Hiruzen. Even though it does pain me, it has to be done. Konoha comes first above all. It seems that this is starting to look like a stalemate to me, said Madara once the previous fire jutsu had subsided. Naruto for his part glanced to where Shikaku was to see him not moving. So, the Shodai stopped Shikaku. Kurama scowled. It's one of the things that he can do. He can even stop me like that. Naruto could see that Kurama wasn't too thrilled about that fact, so he decided to not comment on it. Instead, he merely released his summoning jutsu that he had on Shikaku. Said Bijou merely disappeared in a puff of smoke. Is this it for all of your surprises? Asked Madara. Naruto chuckled as he looked at him. And why would you want to know about what I can do anyways? Madara shrugged. I'm just merely trying to see if you're the right one is all. Naruto narrowed his eyes at that. I'm not one of your experiments, Madara. Madara chuckled at that. Really? Because I'm the one that has made you into what you currently are. There's no denying that fact. Madara took a small pause before continuing. You only gained the knowledge as to what had happened to the Uzumaki clan because I told Mito. Hearing this causes Hashirama's face to turn that into a surprise one. Mito, he thought to himself. What does she have to do with this? As to how you gained the Rinnegan, continued Madara, that was all me as well as your Sharingan powers. You see Uzumaki Naruto, I have made you into what you are today. Naruto was silent for a few moments upon hearing that, before erupting into a full fit of laughter. Ha ha ha. Madara merely stood there with an impassive look on his face again. Naruto's laughter quieted down as he looked Madara straight in the eyes. Yes, you're right, Madara. You did set me on this path, there's no denying that fact. And it seems that you're also the one that told Mikoto to give me the Sharingan as well. Well, that really isn't that much of a surprise, said Naruto with a shrug at the end. He then continued, so yes, you have given me all of that and you did set me on this path. But it was I that walked it. It was I that chose to keep going no matter what, no matter how much of a bastard I became as a result. It was I that managed to make all of this possible because I chose to walk this dark path. You may have started this by telling Mito as to what really happened with the Uzumaki clan, but we both know that if I had simply chosen to ignore it and not have listened to that at all, then we wouldn't be standing here today. Naruto then shrugged again. In a way though I suppose that you could call yourself the creator, but my role in this is not any less important. You could say that it was because of the both of us that all of this that is happening here today is possible. Madara humphed again, but didn't reply. Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto turned his gaze up towards where Hashirama was standing only to come face to face with the steel look of one of the strongest shinobi in history. Naruto smirked internally at this. So this is the true Shodai Hokage. What is it? Asked Naruto. What happened to the Uzumaki clan? Asked Hashirama. Is that why you're trying to destroy Konoha as well? Minato also listened to this with rapt attention, not knowing himself. On the rooftop, Hiruzen lowered his head, not wanting to see how one of his teachers was going to react in knowing what course of action he himself had taken all those years ago. Kabuto merely readjusted his glasses. Naruto chuckled lightly at this. You wouldn't know, would you? Naruto shook his head. I can only say that you would be disappointed to see what your dream has become, Shodai Hokage. What are you talking about? Asked Hashirama with a raised eyebrow. Exactly what I told you that was going to happen, Hashirama, replied Madara while looking at him with Hashirama also looking at him. The village, Konoha, your dream has become the very darkness that you and I were trying to destroy just like I told you it would become, stated Madara. What? Said Hashirama quietly with his head lowered. I don't know what you intended for Konoha to be, replied Naruto while looking straight at him, nor do I know or will pretend to know as to how things were before the foundations of the shinobi villages. But I will tell you this, Naruto paused for a second before continuing, Konoha, the hidden villages, they have become the same thing that made up the past. War after war. In some aspects though, this present might be even worse than how things were in the past. After all, I'm sure that there was at least loyalty among comrades and clans. Hashirama snapped his head up at this, looking straight at Naruto, connecting the dots. You can't possibly mean that Konoha dash. Yes, interrupted Naruto, they did. The Sandaime Hokage chose to abandon his own comrades for the sake of the village, stated Naruto while turning his gaze towards where Hiruzen was standing with his head lowered. Hashirama as well turned to look at Hiruzen. Is this true, Hiruzen? He asked with a dangerous undertone. Hiruzen merely nodded, not saying anything. This can't be. Muttered Minato and Kushina came into his mind. Kushina. I see. Said Hashirama as he turned his back to Hiruzen, not saying anything else. That's the reality of things, my old friend, said Madara with a sigh. What you and I were chasing was but a mere dream that we could not accomplish in our lifetime. Hashirama didn't respond. Kabuto brought his hands to the ram seal. That's enough with the chatter, don't you think? Madara merely grunted. He might not control me anymore, but fighting Naruto here is something that I will not pass up. A red dot mark surrounded by a circle appeared on Hashirama's forehead as well as red rings under both of his eyes. His eyes changed to that of a goldish color as well. So he's starting to get serious then, thought Naruto as he felt the atmosphere around Hashirama change. Minato for his part could only gulp slightly as he felt the overbearing presence of Hashirama thanks to the fact that he was currently so close to the Shodai. So this is the power of the Senju Hashirama, thought Minato in wonder. Kabuto merely smirked. Madara for his part could only sigh and shake his head. Well, if he's going to go all out, I should as well. Turning his attention towards Madara, Naruto actually took a step back as he gazed at Madara's new Susanoo transformation as it began to change once more. And the end result, well the point was, it was fucking huge. It seems that the games end here, Uzumaki Naruto, said Madara. This is my true Susanoo, he further added with a hint of pride within his voice. Naruto could only chuckle slightly at this as he felt the power radiating from both shinobi. Any sane person would have ran away by now, thought Naruto. Good thing that I'm not completely sane then. You want my power, don't you?
Naruto's eyes widened partially as he found himself floating in an empty space of darkness. You. Jubi chuckled as he looked at Naruto. I've been watching the little show outside. Highly amusing, I must say. Who says that I want to use your power? The Jubi merely chuckled again. It's your only choice for the moment. Your mastery over the Rinnegan or that of your Manjiki Sharingan is nowhere near that of that Uchiha. And neither is your experience compared to that of either one of them. They were born to fight after all.
Naruto merely turned his back on the beast. I've already dealt with this kind of stuff from Kurama once. I won't be tricked, not anymore. I won't try to escape, Jubi stated. I'll admit it, you actually interest me, Uzumaki Naruto. You interest me to the point that I don't wish to kill you just yet. And those two out there, they can provide me with enough entertainment for a while. Besides, wasn't this the reason as to why you revived me in the first place? Naruto snorted as he turned his head back to look at the Jubi. Let's get something straight. The Jubi was then brought down by a bunch of massive torii gates falling on top of it, making it unable to move besides its head. You. Naruto floated forward until he was right in front of the beast's massive eye. I am in control of you, not the other way around, said Naruto with narrowed eyes. You might have thought that I was just another fool, but I knew exactly the risks that were involved in reviving you. The fact that I still revived you should show you that I am more than prepared to handle them. So don't try anything and you'll be locked up just like you once were in the past. The Jubi could only stare at Naruto before its eye widened, not that Naruto could see it. And why did that happen, you might ask yourself? That was because behind Naruto, the Jubi could see the shroud of the Rikudo Sennin, staring right back at it. This boy. The Jubi then chuckled until it transformed into a full laughter. It subsided after a few seconds. And when it did so, the Jubi focused entirely on Naruto. Very well, Uzumaki. I promise to behave for the time being. Naruto merely turned his back to the beast again. Good. In the real world, only about 3 seconds had passed. Both Madara and Hashirama took a step back once they felt the dark energy that was beginning to emanate from Naruto. This is not his Susanoo, thought Madara with narrowed eyes. What is this? Wondered Hashirama. Kabuto for his part couldn't help as his snaky tongue slithered out of his mouth again, interested to see what Naruto was planning to do. Naruto-kun, thought Hiruzen, troubled. Minato for his part could only stare at his son. Water style, Mizu Tatsumaki. Mifune couldn't hold back the cringe as he fell to his knees as a spinning water vortex surrounded him. I can't move very well because of my injuries, he thought. And true to his statement, his entire body was covered in wounds besides the first one that he had sustained from Kushina. But the major one that he sustained at the hands of the redhead had been a wound to his ribs, and because of it, he couldn't move around as much. The result his current condition. Kushina let out a small grin as she picked up her sword that she had embedded to the ground. It seems that you're through, old man, she stated as she walked forward. It seems so, replied Mifune with a sigh. The redhead before him was a lot stronger than he had anticipated. Her mastery in Kenjutsu was really astonishing. Even he couldn't keep up with the redhead, his wounds being the proof of that. It was at that moment that Kushina stopped walking as a dark energy began to surround the room. Mifune stopped his thoughts as well, sensing the dark energy as well. I take it that this is not what you're doing, said Mifune. Kushina didn't respond to him. Of course it wasn't her. But she had an idea as to whom it was from. Naruto-kun, she thought. Of course she had felt the shaking from earlier, but nothing had happened to this area, it would seem. And although curious, she had a battle to win here. Not only that, but she figured that it was all just because of the fighting that was taking place. It was to be expected. But now this as well. What can you be doing, Naruto-kun? Thought Kushina. What will you do? Asked Miun, breaking Kushina out of her thoughts and causing her to turn her attention to the samurai. Kushina didn't respond to him yet again. The spinning vortex of water that was surrounding Miun disappeared, but he wasn't able to dwell on that or think what to do next, as his head was off his body the next moment, courtesy of Kushina. Kushina looked behind her to see Mifun's body falling to the ground as well as his head rolling off. She then proceeded to run out of the room and headed towards where the dark energy was coming from. What is this? No one present had to ask Karen what she meant, every one of them feeling the dark energy that was currently present in the air. Sasuke and his team along with Mikoto were currently running through the snow-covered plain back to the building where the Kage summit was taking place. Danzo was dead. Plain and simple as that. They had burned the entire camp to the ground as well as Danzo's body. Apparently Danzo had destroyed Shirsui's eye before finally succumbing to death, so his body was of no importance anymore. They had already felt small quakes in the area, but that just meant that the fighting had already begun. But now this. Sasuke narrowed his eyes. Why do I get the feeling that you're behind this, Naruto? Mikoto merely narrowed her eyes as well. Mito could only stare in shock at the sight before her. But that was something that no one could blame her for. Tsunade appeared behind her through what was once the entrance to the now destroyed room where the meeting had taken place before all of this had happened. But before she could attack her grandmother, she took notice of what had made her stop in the first place. Let's just say that it made her stop as well. This was not expected, thought Madara as the dark energy surrounding Naruto began to take form. Hashirama for his part could only stare at the sight before him in a slight amount of awe. My son, thought Minato with a sad look. To think that he's turned into this. Madara, Hashirama, said a demonic voice from within the dark energy. It took them a few moments, but then they recognized it as Naruto's voice. The dark energy finally took the form of that of the Jubi, with none other than Naruto standing on top of its head, his Rinnegan activated. Looking straight into the Jubi's one eye caused Madara's Rinnegan to subconsciously activate. What is that thing? Muttered Tsunade with a shocked look on her face. Naruto, thought Mito with a troubled look, you couldn't possibly have had. Kabuto could only take a step back as he looked at the Jubi. Impossible, muttered Hiruzen with wide eyes. Minato could only look at the sight before him with wide eyes. So he managed to revive the Jubi, thought Madara with a surprised look. Now that's unexpected. Uzumaki Naruto, said Hashirama as he looked at said silver-haired individual. Naruto stood on top of the Jubi's head, arms crossed, Rinnegan activated and with a slight smirk on his face. Madara, Hashirama, repeated Naruto once again as he looked at them both. Just like you said. It's time to finish with the games and to end this. Madara merely humphed again. Let's see if you can back up that statement. Hashirama didn't respond. Naruto glanced at Hashirama before turning his gaze towards Madara, meeting Uchiha's eyes. This time, Rinnegan met Rinnegan. Fuka was currently breathing heavily, an act brought about thanks to her having run at a fast speed from what was currently happening in the Kage meeting room. Fuka leaned one of the walls on the hallway that she was currently in, trying to catch her breath, all the while shaking a bit thanks to the suppressing and dark energy that she felt in the air. What is this energy? She wondered to herself. The last thing that she had seen before running out of the room had been Naruto and Madara going at it against each other with strange-looking things surrounding them both, saying things both looking demonic but Naruto's even more so than Madara's. She had also felt the shakes that had occurred earlier, but she didn't dwell on them too much. After all, there were a bunch of high-powered individuals fighting throughout the entire building. It would be surprising if there weren't any shakes at all. But all of that didn't compare to the current situation. Could Naruto be the one responsible for this, thought Fuka to herself. It would make sense in a way. But then again, the people that he was fighting with could have also been the ones responsible. They weren't slouches themselves, hence the reason for her not having taken place in the fighting. She would have just gotten in the way, period. That, and she didn't want to die just yet if she could help it, thank you very much. But even so, it was highly unlikely for Naruto to have created such a dark energy as this. Even when he had used the Kyuubi's chakra and transformed into said Bijou back in Konoha days earlier, it felt nothing like this. And as far as she was concerned, that was the darkest power there was. Footsteps coming the opposite way brought her out of her thoughts. She pushed herself off the wall and readied herself for a fight in case it was an enemy. But instead, a familiar redhead with a sword in hand appeared. Kushina, said Fuka with a raised eyebrow. The last that she had seen of the redhead had been said redhead leaving the room where the Kage meeting had been to fight some old guy that was the apparent leader of the Land of Iron and of the samurai. But she was now here, did that mean that she had won? Fuka, said Kushina as she stopped in front of her fellow redhead and Uzumaki. Where is Naruto-kun? Kushina asked her. Fuka merely tilted her head to where she had come from. Over there where the Kages had been having their little meeting, most likely still fighting the previous Hokages and those Uchihas. What? Exclaimed Kushina with wide eyes. What do you mean, the previous Hokages? Fuka took a step back from the redhead. Exactly that. That Kabuto person summoned them using that Edo Tensei jutsu. Kushina growled at that. I should have known that Kabuto was responsible for this, she thought before walking around Fuka, intent on heading to where Naruto was fighting. Seeing this, Fuka placed one of her hands on Kushina's shoulders. I would advise you not to go over there, stated Fuka with a shake of her head. I'm sure that you feel this dark power in the air, and while not certain as to what the cause for it is, I'm sure that it has to be from one of them that are fighting over there. Kushina for her part merely shook Fuka's hand off of her shoulder and took a couple of steps forward before stopping. I know that, replied Kushina without turning to look at Fuka. But it doesn't matter to me. Someone very important to me is fighting over there, and I'll be damned if something happens to him without me doing something to help him. Fuka already knew who the he was. Why? She asked with a curious look. I know that he's your son, but you act more as if he's not even that but just the guy that you fell in love with. This time, Kushina did turn her head back to look at Fuka, a small smile on her face. That's because I did fall in love with him. I don't know how, but I did. It might be wrong, but I don't care. I was in part at fault for how his life turned out to be, so I'll always be there, right by his side to support him in everything that he does. I don't know if that will make up for my mistake, but I'm willing to try. I thought that you were in this because our clan was wiped out and left to ruin by Konoha, asked Fuka, the curious look still in place, wanting to know what exactly the redhead was thinking. Kushina turned her head forward and did a small shrug. Yes, that is also true. The only feeling that I have left for that place is nothing more than just hatred, and would like nothing more than to just see it burn to the ground along with all its occupants. But Kushina took a small pause and another smile graced upon her lips, not that Fuka could see it since Kushina was turned around. I guess that my love for him is just simply stronger. With that, Kushina resumed her running, intent on getting to where Naruto was at. Fuka for her part could only stare at the retreating redhead, surprise still present all over her face. This is most troubling, thought Mito as she looked up to the enormous revived beast. I had no clue that he had done this. Not only that, but Madara hadn't said anything about this to her either. So either he had felt the need to leave her out of the loop on another subject, or he didn't know that this was going to happen either. Turning her head to the side, she saw Madara standing within his perfect and complete Susanoo, arms crossed yet again and with an impassive look on his face. So he was revived then, she thought before looking towards where a large statue made out of wood stood and looked up towards its head to see a kneeling blonde that resembled what Naruto had looked like as well as a familiar individual. Hashirama, thought Mito with another troubled look. Why she was troubled she didn't know. It could be because her husband was back, and she didn't want to know what he would think of all of this. Or maybe something else entirely. Kabuto for his part could only stare at the Jubi in front of him with a blank look on his face before it turned to a smile that would have made Orochimaru proud. This is perfect, he thought with a chuckle as his snake-like tongue slithered out of his mouth again. This is beyond perfect. The Jubi, the same beast that the Rikudo Sennin sealed within himself to become the first ever Jinchuriki in existence, it will be mine. On top of the Jubi's head stood a calm and serious-looking Naruto with his arms also crossed, the small smirk that had been on face having disappeared. The Jubi chuckled within his mind, having replaced Kurama for the moment. Yes, the feeling of the real world, it's amazing. It sure has been a while. Don't get too attached to it, replied Naruto. The Jubi simply chuckled again. Right. Now, show me your power, stated Naruto as he looked at both Madara and Hashirama. Of course, replied the Jubi as he also focused on both Madara and Hashirama, seeing them both to be the ones that would provide him with the most amusement. Sensing this, Madara's Susanoo prepared its now single sword, intent on striking the beast. It would appear that my seeing through time had not been perfected after all, thought Madara calmly as he looked at the 10-tailed beast. Well, I suppose that it shouldn't be too much of a surprise. The Shinigami did tell me that my mastery of my Rinnegan was nowhere near that of the Rikudo Sennin. He was broken out of his thoughts as Hashirama spoke. The Jubi is it, commented Hashirama, his face devoid of any emotion. It seems that you must not know the consequences that will come because of this, Uzumaki Naruto. Hearing this, Naruto shook his head. You're wrong, answered Naruto, his voice altered thanks to the Jubi's chakra that was currently running through his chakra coils. I know very well what the risks are. I'm just prepared to handle them is all that there is to it. I'll believe that when you have stopped us, said Madara, cutting into the conversation. Naruto turned his attention to the Uchiha. You should already know that you have lost, Madara. Not even you have something that can stand up against me now. Madara chuckled at that. You? Don't you mean the Jubi? Do you really believe that this is your power, Uzumaki Naruto? Madara then raised his right arm, pointing it straight up at Naruto. This is not your power. It's the Jubi's. It's as simple as that. You are merely borrowing it. Just like you were planning on doing, retorted Naruto. I don't know exactly what made you change your mind, but I know for a fact that you were planning on using the Jubi to cast a genjutsu on the world to control it just like Tobi was planning on doing as well. Now what do you call that? Madara chuckled again. Then you and I are the same in that regard, I suppose. We're both simply worthless. A ghost of a smile appeared on Naruto's face. I suppose that I agree with you on that, Madara. It was at this point that Minato stood up and looked straight at Naruto with an angry look on his face. Why? He asked him, making Naruto glance at his father. You yourself admit that you are wrong by doing this. So why? Why do you continue to do it? Naruto could only chuckle while shaking his head. Why do you continue to ask the same question over and over again? You should know by now that I'm simply following the normal course of action that anyone else would have taken if you were in my shoes. That is where you are wrong, stated Hashirama as he looked Naruto straight in the eyes. Only those who are truly strong can resist the temptation of going down the path that you are. Naruto laughed while spreading his arms. Ha ha ha. Fine then. Call me weak. You may actually be right on that, Hashirama. Perhaps I am weak because I chose this. Perhaps this is the wrong way of doing this, that there is another way and a better one at that. But this is the reality of things now. I chose this, to be weak, as you put it. But that's being human for you, Hashirama. Naruto shook his head. You seem to think that people can just forgive each other like we breathe oxygen every day. But you're absolutely wrong on that. People can just put up appearances, saying that they are truly sorry while on the inside actually thinking the exact opposite and vice versa. Words of forgiveness come easy, that is true. But true love and true forgiveness do not. Naruto then looked at his father. You expected for me to have just forgiven everything that Konoha did to me. And you know what? I almost did. Because there were some people that actually began to see me for myself, and not just as simply as the Jubi brat. But there was always something within me that would just never forgive any of them, not completely at least. This resentment. I had always pushed it down, hiding what I truly felt within a dumb smile. But once I started to learn the true nature of the village, well, all my suppressed emotions just came to the surface. You can call me weak or a brat with anger issues for doing all of this, but before doing that, you should put yourself in my shoes. What would you do? Would you have chosen to be a better person and just forget about everything? Highly unlikely, but if so, then you can start calling me a bastard and a brat or whatever other names that you want. But if not. Madara, Hashirama, and Minato all took a step back as the Jubi let out a massive roar, sending them all along with Mito and the rest to their knees from the powerful shaking of the earth itself. Then you can go to hell. Madara looked up towards Naruto with a small amount of what appeared to be praise before the look disappeared completely as if it had never been there. Naruto turned his attention to Madara, or more specifically Madara's Susanoo, as said Susanoo raised its sword upwards, intent on cutting down the Jubi. That's not going to work, thought Naruto. The Jubi for its part merely intercepted the sword as it came downward with one of its hands. Madara narrowed his eyes as he saw this. It is indeed powerful. Instead of letting go of the sword as Madara tried to raise it up again, the Jubi simply broke it in half. What, thought Madara. Seeing this happening, Hashirama brought his hands together as he jumped off the wood statue's head that he had been previously standing on. Senpo, Mokutan, Shinsu Senju. Naruto actually raised an eyebrow in surprise as another wooden statue of titanic proportions, a lot bigger than the previous one, rose from the ground beneath Hashirama, said individual standing on its head. Said statue possessed thousands of hands on its back in countless concentric rows while its two main ones were clasped together as if praying. The statue was tall and big enough that it actually reached to the Jubi's upper chest. Naruto smirked at this. This will be interesting to the end, it seems. Both Hashirama and Naruto locked eyes at this point, both looking determined to defeat the other. Chojo Kabutsu. All the hands from Hashirama's statue were suddenly in motion, intent on punching the shit out of its target, which was none other than the Jubi in this case. Seeing this, the Jubi brought forth both of its arms in front of it to block itself, but without much success. There were just so many damn punches to properly block. Not only that, but the sheer force of them was enough to start pushing the Jubi back. I will not lose this, thought Hashirama from on top of his statue's head, hands still clasped together just like the statue that he had summoned. Hashirama, thought Mito as she watched this. She then saw movement behind her, causing her to look back to see Tsunade walking towards her. That's my grandfather, said Tsunade with wide eyes. Mito simply turned her back on her. Yes, it is, she stated with narrowed eyes, an action that was missed by Tsunade. You surely do act all high and mighty when you yourself do the exact same things that we do. Tsunade turned her head to look at her grandmother's back. What? She said with her eyes also narrowed. You know what I'm talking about, retorted Mito with an angry look as she looked behind her to look straight into Tsunade's eyes. Violating the dead, that is simply one of the worst things that one can do. A frown appeared on Tsunade's face. You have no right to talk. As far as I can see you have also done dash. We haven't, interrupted Mito. The Edo Tensei is completely different from Naruto's Rinnegan powers. He actually brings the people back from the dead, their wills intact. Not to be used as some tool. That's what the Edo Tensei does. But that's not the worst part. Mito sighed here. The fact that you actually try to play the good guy while doing something like this is just simply low. While we have done some wrong things, we don't lie about them or try to say that it was righteous. I have nothing to do with this, stated Tsunade with a fierce look. The fact that you are teamed up with this Kabuto is enough, stated Mito as she turned her head to look at the fight, intent on joining it. Remember this, Tsunade, I will kill Kabuto. Hashirama had nothing to do with this and yet you have disturbed his rest. And if I do find out that you are part of this, then I will kill you as well. With that, Mito jumped upwards into the air, biting her thumb enough to draw out blood and did the necessary hand seals for her jutsu. Once done, she brought her hand down. Summoning jutsu. A poof of smoke appeared beneath her as she landed on top of the smoke. Tsunade's eyes widened as a hawk-like creature with red-colored feathers came out of the smoke with Mito kneeling on top of said summoned animal's head. That's not a hawk, thought Tsunade as she studied the summoned animal better. That's a phoenix. Flying at top speed, the red-colored phoenix headed straight towards where Kabuto stood. Sensing this, Kabuto turned his head to see a redhead that he did not recognize coming towards him on top of some bird-like animal. Kabuto merely smirked as Hiruzen appeared in front of him, already inhaling fire style, Karyudan. Seeing the projectiles of fire bullets heading towards her, Mito simply looked at them with a calm look, not bothering to even try to dodge them. And as to why she didn't try to dodge them was because rings of fire began to surround her summoned phoenix's wings, who in turn simply absorbed the fire bullets. You'll have to do better than Kabuto, she stated as the phoenix sent projectiles of fire towards them instead. Seeing this, both Kabuto and Hiruzen jumped upwards and out of the way of the attack. Now, said Mito as the phoenix's beak opened and a stream of fire was sent to both Kabuto and Hiruzen at top speed. At the last second, a large snake was suddenly around Kabuto, shielding him from the stream of fire. Hiruzen? He wasn't so lucky. He landed below on the rooftop as a fireball. The fire around him soon began to extinguish, his body already regenerating. Kabuto for his part calmly landed behind where Hiruzen lay, the snake around him disappearing. He looked up towards where Mito's phoenix was currently flying with said redhead looking back at him. This jutsu of yours, she began, I will stop it. Kabuto smirked as he readjusted his glasses. I'm not sorry to tell you this, but even if you do kill me, the jutsu will not be stopped. It can only be stopped by the user, which is me, and I really don't feel like doing that. I'll simply make you then, retorted Mito. Kabuto chuckled before he began to study Mito like some sort of experiment. Uzumaki Mito, I take it? Said to be the strongest kunoichi to have ever lived as well as the very first Jinchuriki of the Kyubi. Studying your body once I kill you will be most satisfying. Mito's face took that of a disgusted one. You really have issues, you know. Before they could continue, Hiruzen spoke from where he lay with a surprised tone. Mito-sama? Is that you? Mito glanced at him with a disinterested look on her face. Hiruzen, I take it? Well, seeing you lay there like you are is a big plus for this annoying jutsu. Hiruzen could only stare at her in shock. Yes, he had suspected that she had been up to something with how she had changed after the Uzumaki clan had been destroyed. But suspecting and actually seeing it come true are two very different things. So you really were began Hiruzen before he was interrupted. Yes, said Mito. But did you really think that I was just going to let slide what you and those damn elders did? No, I wasn't. And as you can see, my retribution has already started. Hiruzen could only look at her with an unreadable expression on his face as he stood up, his body already having regenerated. So you're a traitor as well, he stated. What would sensei think? Cut that crap, interrupted Mito again with narrowed eyes. Because it's not going to work on me. Hiruzen didn't reply as a staff appeared in his hands in a puff of smoke. Kabuto simply chuckled again. Enough of this, thought Naruto as Hashirama's attack continued to attack the Jubi, slowly but steadily pushing said bijou back. Most surprising, said the Jubi from within Naruto's mind. This human is not half bad. I'm going to enjoy killing him. Naruto didn't reply as his hands began to form hand seals at an even faster rate than he had ever done before. His Rinnegan began to glow as wind began to surround him. Seeing this from the ground, Madara raised an eyebrow. His Rinnegan is actually gaining more and more power in this fight. I suppose true combat is the best way for a shinobi to grow after all. With that in mind, he also brought his hands together as he prepared his next jutsu from within his Susanoo. Wood style, Kagekai Korin. Naruto looked down towards Jubi's feet to see an actual forest begin to appear. Naruto smirked. Not bad. So Madara also has my Mokutan abilities, thought Hashirama as he also noticed the emerging forest. This is not going to work though, thought Naruto as he jumped down from the Jubi's head, the wind from before surrounding him like an armor similar to that of a "watch out," said the Jubi from within Naruto's mind. I've sensed some sort of poison that is present from within those flowers of those trees. Thanks for the heads up, replied Naruto as he touched down on the forest, destroying the forest completely thanks to that of his wind armor as an actual tornado-like form began to surround him and destroy everything within its radius. But poison is not effective with someone like me. Now deal with that jutsu. The Jubi scoffed. I was just trying to see what exactly it would do. But if this is all... Naruto looked up to see the Jubi actually begin to fight back. It began to prepare an all-familiar jutsu that Naruto was familiar with. Baijidama. Hashirama had a surprised look on his face as a beam of blackish, purplish energy began to be fired from the Jubi, destroying all of the arms that were sent to punch it. I thought that jutsu could only be performed in a ball form, thought Hashirama, having recognized the strongest attack that was known to all of the bijou. He then jumped off the wood statue as the beam began to hit the statue, making it start to crumble into pieces. So this is the power of the Jubi, he thought in mid-air. Impressive. Naruto turned his head forward to see Madara calmly standing there calmly, still within his Susanoo. It seems that your affinity to wind has been amplified thanks to your Rinnegan, stated Madara, looking at Naruto's wind armor. Naruto smirked at him. And you? Still hiding in that Susanoo of yours? Why don't you come out, or are you too scared to face me without it? Madara smirked as well. I'm not stupid, Uzumaki. Trying to anger me will not work either.
My Susanoo is both my best defense and offense right now.
Naruto shrugged at that as he got ready to charge. We'll see about that. He then disappeared from sight, making Madara raise an eyebrow in surprise. He's fast, thought Madara as he tried to locate Naruto. He looked up to see Naruto in mid-air, a familiar jutsu in hand except that it looked a lot stronger than before. It must be because of his wind armor, thought Madara as he prepared to counterattack. Naruto then threw his jutsu as Madara finished his hand seal on the tiger seal. Wind style, Rasen Shuriken. Fire style, Gokakyu. The Rasen Shuriken and the larger-than-normal fireball met, trying to repel the other. Now naturally, fire won against wind. But there were exceptions, like if the wind jutsu were to be much stronger than that of the fire-based jutsu. And that was the case here. The Rasen Shuriken cut right through the massive fireball and headed straight towards Madara, who in turn brought the shield from his Susanoo forward for defense, the Rasen Shuriken clashing with its second obstacle. But much to Madara's surprise, it wasn't long before the jutsu shattered through Susanoo's shield as well. With no more obstacles, the Rasen Shuriken impacted with Madara's Susanoo. It's breaking through, thought Madara with narrowed eyes, seeing the armor of Susanoo starting to crack. His affinity towards wind is powerful indeed. That was the last of his thoughts as the Rasen Shuriken broke through his Susanoo. But instead of being panicked, Madara merely brought one of his hands forward. Shinra Tensei. Naruto sighed as his jutsu was repelled by Madara. And here I thought that I had him. A yellow flash in front of him brought Naruto out of his thoughts as Minato appeared in front of him with his Hiraishin kunai in hand. Naruto merely stood there as Minato brought his Hiraishin kunai forward. Said blonde's eyes widened as his kunai was repelled, courtesy of Naruto's wind shield. "You'll have to do better than that," said Naruto as he intended to blow Minato away. But Minato simply disappeared in another yellow flash and reappeared a good distance away. Taking the time to study his surroundings, Naruto noticed several Hiraishin seals placed all over the floor. When did he have the time, thought Naruto as he turned to look at Minato, who was in the process of bringing his right hand down. Summoning Jutsu. A big puff of smoke appeared, only to reveal Gamabunta, the Toad Chief, with Minato standing on top of his head. The toads, thought Naruto. It's been a while since I've last seen them. On the other side of the room, well outside basically as that part was basically destroyed by this point, Hashirama panted as his left arm was in the process of regenerating while standing on top of his previously smaller constructed statue. I've had enough, thought the Jubi. It had merely been toying with Hashirama at this point, trying to see what said Senju was capable of, but now it was through with that. He's not on that Senin's level, but he's not that bad either. But it's over now. Hashirama could only look up to see Jubi's tails begin to move at this point. What is it up to now, he wondered. With a swipe from one of its tails, the Jubi sent a surge of powerful wind towards Hashirama, who in turn used his wooden statue to remain in place. It wasn't long, however, as the wooden statue began to crumble thanks to the pressure. The next thing Hashirama knew, he was sent flying courtesy from another swipe from one other tail of the Jubi. It's just toying with me, realized Hashirama as he impacted with the only wall that was still standing from what had previously been a room, right below where Hiruzen was currently taking a beating of his own. I can't keep up with her, thought Hiruzen as the entire left side of his body was in the process of trying to regenerate itself, his staff currently laying on the ground. But not only was the redhead fast, but that summoned phoenix of her was powerful as well. It withstood all of his fire jutsu as well as his earth-based ones as well. Not only that, but it was too fast for him to hit it with any of the water jutsu in his arsenal. But when had she gotten the summoning contract of the phoenix? And with all that, its attack speed was impressive as well as its attacks, half of his body being burned being the proof of that. "You're through, Hiruzen," said Mito as a large circle filled with seal symbols appeared around Hiruzen. Hashirama, who was still stuck in the wall, looked up, having recognized Mito's voice. Mito, thought Hashirama as he looked at her. I shouldn't be surprised. The seal symbols surrounded Hiruzen, who found that he couldn't move at all. What are you doing to me? He asked her. I'm going to steal you away, answered Mito. That is, until I find a way to permanently stop you. Watching this, Kabuto brought his hands together, intent on summoning more dead shinobi from within his collection. Tsunade landing right beside him stopped him from doing so. What is it? He asked as he looked at her. The next thing that Kabuto knew, he was suddenly smashed right into the ground, falling right through the floor and off the ceiling and down below. You bastard! Muttered Tsunade with a furious look. Mito actually smirked at the sight. There's hope for you left, my granddaughter, she thought before focusing on Hiruzen. Fuinjutsu, sure no Shiringu. The last thing that Hiruzen saw was Mito's emotionless look before he was completely surrounded by the ceiling symbols, immobile, and with no life. He was basically in a comatose state at that point. Hiruzen, said his staff before it disappeared in a puff of smoke. Turning to Tsunade, a small smile graced Mito's face. I must say that you have surprised me today, Tsunade. Tsunade huffed as she turned to look at her grandmother. I didn't do it for you. That bastard had it coming is all. Mito-chan? Tsunade-chan? Both women froze as they both recognized the voice. Hashirama, said Mito with wide eyes, Tsunade with the same expression. They didn't continue as a massive roar caught their attention. Looking upward, even Mito who was still riding her summoned phoenix, they saw a massive hand coming downwards where they were currently in. Hashirama used his wood style to summon tendrils of wood to reach Mito's phoenix who was in the process of flying out of range. Tsunade for her part pushed massive amounts of chakra to her feet to propel her backwards and out of the range of the massive hand. The end result was the entire room collapsing. Well, it really wasn't a room at this point. More like half a room. But the point was that it was completely destroyed. This is the scene that Kushina walked into, stopping herself at the last second at the doorway, letting her squash along with the rest of the room. That was close, thought Kushina with a small sigh, before focusing on the matter at hand. Naruto reappeared on top of the Jubi's head, releasing a sigh. That was overboard, you know. No, it wasn't, replied Jubi. I haven't even gotten started yet. Mito looked behind her to see Hashirama landing on her summoned animal. It is you, muttered Mito, shocked. Tears began to roll down her cheeks, making her shake her head. This was no time to be crying, damn it. It seems that I can move on my own for now, thought Hashirama before walking up towards Mito. Mito. Mito looked at him while trying to clear the tears from her face. There's no need to cry, said Hashirama with one of his famous smiles back on his face. Mito for her part couldn't hold herself as she actually flung at Hashirama, kissing him. Hashirama's eyes widened in a comical way before following Mito's example and kissing her back. Naruto looked forward to seeing both Minato and Gamabunta landing in front of him, the latter smoking from his pipe. Moments later, Madara appeared beside Minato. Oi, Minato, said Gamabunta as he glanced up above to see his dead summoner. What the hell is going on here? I thought that you were dead. The situation is a bit complicated right now, replied Minato as he looked up towards his son. Following his gaze, Gamabunta raised an eyebrow. What the hell is this? No one answered him. Oi Jubi, thought Naruto. No more holding back. I want to end this now. Jubi chuckled within Naruto's mind. If you say so. Minato and Madara both took a step back as they felt the pressure around the air begin to change. So the Jubi is finally going to get serious, thought Madara. Oi, what is that? Looking toward where Suigetsu was pointing, Mikoto stopped dead on her tracks, causing the others to stop as well. That's where the dark chakra is coming from, stated Karen with a fearful look. But it's gotten even more intense somehow. So you've done it, Naruto, thought Mikoto with a smirk and an eager look on her face. Sasuke glanced at his mother to see her smirk. Do you know what is going on here? Asked Sasuke as he looked at her. You might say that, replied Mikoto before looking back to where the massive beast stood. And trust me when I say that you will not want to get too close right now. Not sure why she was saying this, Sasuke simply decided to follow her mother's advice. She hadn't been wrong before. Breaking the kiss, both Mito and Hashirama looked down to see the earth beneath the Jubi began to crack. It seems that he's getting serious, muttered Hashirama. Don't get involved, said Mito as she looked at him. I'll find a way to permanently get you back here to life again and dash. Mito, interrupted Hashirama with a sad sigh. I don't want that. I've already died. My time in the living world is over. I just want to rest now. Mito herself could only sigh at that. Of course she should have expected that. That was just the kind of person that Hashirama was. That was why she had asked Naruto to not bring him back to life in the first place. But seeing him again made her rational part disappear, if only for the moment. And Hashirama was the only person who could do that to her. Besides, continued Hashirama while looking towards where a calm-looking Naruto stood, I've still yet to get a solid answer from that boy as to why he's doing this. Mito looked at him with a raised eyebrow. That's because dash. It's not that, interrupted Hashirama with a shake of his head. There's something else to it and I want to know what it is. But first. Hashirama turned to look at Mito with another one of his smiles. I know now that you are a part of this and I understand why you are doing this as well. Mito's breath hitched as Hashirama spoke. Hashirama sighed, before continuing. Honestly, I never would have thought that my own creation would have caused you so much pain. Mito shook her head. It's not your creation anymore, Hashirama. Hiruzen and the rest destroyed it. I still created it though, retorted Hashirama. I suppose that Madara had been right after all. Hashirama then let go of Mito and proceeded to jump down off the flying phoenix before looking back at a troubled-looking Mito one more time with one last smile. No matter what you do, I will forgive you and will always love you. With that last statement, Hashirama jumped off and headed straight towards Naruto. Thank you, Hashirama, thought Mito as, against her will once again, more tears started to roll down her cheeks. I really did need that. Naruto looked up to see Hashirama coming at him with the same emotionless look that he had seen before, hands clasped together. Wood style, Hote. Naruto glanced at the ground beneath Jubi's feet for a second as several large wooden hands came out of the ground, intent on restraining said beast before turning his attention to Hashirama. The same markings from before appeared on Hashirama's face again as he landed in front of Naruto. This is over with, stated Naruto, his voice going back to what it had been before as the wooden hands beneath the Jubi's feet simply cracked into millions of pieces, said beast not having moved an inch. You seem to have gotten truly serious, stated Hashirama. Dragging this out any longer would be pointless, replied Naruto with a slight smirk. Not only that, but it was foolish for you to have come up here, Hashirama. And true to his word, black energy began to surround Hashirama who stood there calmly. I know that, said Hashirama as he looked at Naruto with another smile. I'm in full control of my body right now. I have no interest in this battle anymore except for one thing. Naruto raised an eyebrow in curiosity but didn't drop his guard either. And that is? Why are you truly doing this? Asked Hashirama as he looked Naruto straight in the eyes. I know that you don't care as much as you say that you do about what happened to the Uzumaki clan. Well,
Not as much as to be doing what you're doing, that is. Naruto let out a smile of his own as he approached the immobile Hashirama as the black energy around his feet prevented him from moving. Do you really want to know something like that? Said Naruto as he stopped in front of Hashirama. I do, answered Hashirama. That's the only thing that is keeping me here. Naruto was silent for a while, before answering. You might not realize this, but I have already given the answer to that question. Remind me, if you will, said Hashirama.
Naruto placed one of his hands on Hashirama's shoulder. My reason is a self-sh1. One that I have always had within me since I was a child and knew how to think. Why did everyone always hate me? Why was I always alone? Understanding began to dwell on Hashirama as he closed his eyes. I see. He said quietly. I will destroy Konoha, stated Naruto with no remorse. Hashirama chuckled softly. I know that you will. He then looked up to where Mito was to see her watching everything and sent her one final smile before Naruto dragged his soul out of his body. Farewell, Senju Hashirama, said Naruto softly as he released Hashirama's soul. Despite the seeming dark action, Mito actually smiled. Naruto turned to where Madara stood on top of Gamabunta along with Minato who was looking rather angrily at Madara. Gamabunta let out a puff of smoke from his pipe. So this is Naruto, is it? We could have helped him, said Minato who was looking at Madara with an angry look. Madara for his part simply sighed. You should know that you're in control of your body right now. Now, I don't know why, but you are. I'm sure that Hashirama was as well. So what he just did was by his own free will, meaning that he no longer wished to be a part of this. Minato merely frowned at the Uchiha. Jubi, let's finish this. The Jubi didn't reply. Turning his attention away from Madara, Minato looked down at Gamabunta. We need to stop him now. Madara chuckled from his spot. It's too late for that, Yondaime Hokage. Before Minato could ask him what he meant, Gamabunta did it for him. Minato. In front of us. Minato looked forward to seeing the Jubi charging one of its most powerful attacks yet again. Gamabunta, get us away from here, screamed Minato. It's too late, yelled Naruto as Jubi completed its attack. By Jadama. The attack, looking as if it were on steroids, was launched, and it reached their location too fast before they could avoid it. The tailed beast bomb hit dead on, causing a massive explosion, leaving a massive crater as a result with a big mushroom cloud as well. Another big part of the building where the Kage meeting had taken place was caught in the blast as well. That was what Kushina saw as she landed behind Naruto, having climbed the gigantic beast. You're late, said Naruto as he turned his head back to look at Kushina. That Mifune person was stronger than I anticipated, replied Kushina before looking where the explosion had taken place. It's over, said Naruto as Kushina walked up to stand beside him on his left side. Not yet, commented Kushina as they looked at the crater as the cloud of both dust and smoke began to disappear and focused their attention to the center of the crater where a kneeling Madara stood and with his right side of his body having been taken out in the blast. Minato was lying on his back on Madara's side, only with his chest and head present. Both of their body parts were currently in the process of regenerating as well. He's persistent all right, thought Naruto. Down below within a bunch of debris from the building came out a very annoyed-looking Kabuto. That's Tsunade, he thought, I'm on her side here, well for now at least. And now I have lost the Shodai as a result. Kabuto then brought his hand back together into the ram seal. I have to get the rest into control. You stop right there you bastard. Turning his head to his right, he saw Tsunade who currently had a furious look on her face and was walking towards, promising pain with every step that she took. You have a lot of explaining to do, stated Tsunade. A thud made them both look to Kabuto's left and in Tsunade's case, her right, to see an unconscious Yagura laying there and with Tobirama standing over him, having thrown him on the ground. Tsunade, said Tobirama with a surprised look. Uncle, responded Tsunade with wide eyes. That's quite enough, interrupted Kabuto before another annoying conversation could take place as he appeared behind Tobirama. Now Tsunade, don't do anything stupid or else you'll have to fight your family member here. Tsunade growled at that. You coward. Hiding behind others and refusing to fight your own fights. Kabuto merely shrugged. Call me what you want, but I'm not dying. I still have many things that I have to do. Water style, Hamatsu. All conscious individuals looked up to see a massive group of bubbles coming down towards both Tobirama and Kabuto courtesy of a very injured-looking Utakata within a large bubble. Kabuto looked at the incoming bubbles with an amused look. What are these supposed to be? He asked, not noticing how one of the bubbles trapped Yagura within it. They're supposed to do this, said Utakata as he snapped his fingers making all said bubbles explode all around both Tobirama and Kabuto. What a weird jutsu, thought Tsunade as she watched this. Water style, Suryuden. Utakata scowled as the incoming water dragon made its way towards him. Rokubi, thought Utakata. Said Bijou didn't reply. The water dragon was merely repelled thanks to the bubble that Utakata had surrounded himself with. Looking towards where Kabuto and her uncle should be, Tsunade rushed at Kabuto who stood behind a crouching Tobirama once the smoke had cleared to show that they had not been harmed courtesy of Tobirama. Seeing Tsunade, Tobirama was then in front of Kabuto as Tsunade was in front of him the next, sending a powerful punch at him. The end result was Tobirama flying back from the force. Sorry uncle, thought Tsunade before jumping upwards and aiming a high kick downward towards Kabuto. Sensei Jashu. A large swarm of snakes came out of Kabuto's sleeve and towards Tsunade, who scowled, having recognized Orochimaru's jutsu. The snakes were all sent flying, courtesy of the force of Tsunade's kick, but it gave Kabuto enough time to jump away. Tsunade touched the ground with a big impact, sending rocks and boulders flying around as a result. I guess our partnership is over with, thought Kabuto as he landed next to the sitting Tobirama as he held his head, looking at an enraged Tsunade that was standing within a newly formed small crater that she herself had just created. This is a surprise, thought Utakata as he watched this within his bubble shield, an unconscious Yagura lying within another one next to him. But he wasn't going to question it. That would be stupid. Just sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Madara jumped back just in time to dodge a lot of wooden spikes coming out of the ground. Minato though, he was impaled by multiple ones thanks to him still not being able to move since neither of his legs have been properly restored yet. He can use Mokuton, thought an alarmed Madara as he landed on the other side of the big crater, seeing it as a good enough distance from the gigantic bijou for the moment. How can you use the Mokuton? Asked a shocked Kushina from Naruto's side as she watched all of this. I would like to know that as well, said a normal-looking Mito with no trace of any tears on her face as she landed on Naruto's right side, her phoenix being dispelled in the process. She saw Tsunade engaging Kabuto for the moment, so she would simply see how this fight would end. I've copied it with my Rinnegan, answered Naruto without turning to look at her. So quickly, thought a highly surprised Mito. But that shouldn't be possible. Naruto then jumped off the Jubi's head once more, both Kushina and Mito following him. They all landed in front of Minato, who was still laying there, wooden spikes still piercing what was left of his body, which prevented him from regenerating. Kushina, said Minato with a surprised look. What are you doing here? Kushina sent her husband a small smile. What do you think? She said to him. Minato closed his eyes at that. I see, so you're also part of this as well. I am not sorry for doing what I'm doing, stated Kushina as she looked at him, but I would actually like to properly thank you for having given me a happy life as well as a family in the past. Minato opened his eyes and looked right back at her. Please Kushina, he pleaded. You know that this is wrong. Kushina shook her head. I'm sorry, she replied softly. But I can't do that. This is what I have chosen. That's all to it, father, said Naruto as he walked up towards Minato. Like I have told you, it's too late for words. Minato could only chuckle as he looked up at the snowy and dark cloud-filled sky. Is this what my sacrifice caused? He wondered to himself. Jiraiya-sensei. Is there a child of the prophecy? He then turned to look at his side to see a kneeling Naruto. This is the end, isn't it? He asked, but he already pretty much knew the answer to that question. Yes it is, stated Naruto as he placed his hand on Minato's head. Goodbye, father. Minato simply smiled as Naruto ripped out his soul from his body and released it, just as he had done before with Hashirama. That leaves only Madara. Thought Naruto as looked to where a calm-looking Madara stood. It's all over, Madara, said Naruto as he stood up, both Kushina and Mito standing beside him. Even with just releasing a fraction of the Jubi's power, you have lost. A fraction is it? Thought Madara with a small sigh and crossed his arms yet again. But I suppose this is where my role ends, he thought to himself as he looked towards Naruto, his Rinnegan meeting Naruto's once again. The action caused his mind to remember a conversation that he had had with the Shinigami when he was still alive. Flashback, start. Kuchios, Shinigami. Madara couldn't help but let the proud smirk appear on his face as he felt a dark energy envelop his underground hideout. Uchiha Madara, I take it? Madara chuckled as he looked at the dark robe-wearing being of death. You look a lot different than of what you are rumored to look like, commented Madara. That is because my appearance changes depending on what type of jutsu I have been summoned with, answered the Shinigami. Madara raised an eyebrow. Oh. So is this your true form then? The Shinigami waved his free hand as if to dismiss the question that Madara had asked. That is irrelevant. Madara chuckled again. I suppose it is. Well, what happens now? You're the one that has summoned me. So you tell me what you want. Madara raised an eyebrow again. Aren't you going to take my soul in exchange for me having summoned you? The Shinigami chuckled at hearing that. So it seems that you have yet to know how this jutsu works. The Shinigami then shook his head. To answer your question, no, I will not take your soul, no matter how much I actually want to do so. Why? Asked a surprised Madara. The Shiki Fujin dash. That is another jutsu, interrupted the Shinigami. An imperfect one at that. The Uzumaki clan has always been interested in developing what seem to be godly fuinjutsu. The Shiki Fujin is but the early stage of wanting to try to summon me without any consequences. Like the fuinjutsu known only to the clan head, thought Madara. Could that be the perfect version? But the Rinnegan is a different matter entirely, continued the Shinigami. This jutsu is proof of that. What do you mean? Asked Madara. You're obviously not going to take my soul. Just what exactly does the Rinnegan have to do with this? The Shinigami chuckled again. Before that, how did you figure out this jutsu in the first place? I found the instructions hidden within an old temple during my travels, answered Madara. I see, thought the Shinigami. So the kid must have hidden it there on purpose. The Shinigami then continued. You should know by now that that eye is not ordinary, only one person before you has had it. Said person is also responsible for this. Madara's eyes widened partially. You mean to tell me that the Rikudo Sennin made a deal with you? No, more like I made a deal with him. Madara raised an eyebrow at that, but didn't comment. But that is something for someone else to completely know about, continued the Shinigami. Someone else, repeated Madara. When you develop your Rinnegan powers more, you will know what I mean, replied the Shinigami. And? Why exactly is this person so special? Asked Madara. Hummed the Shinigami. That is because he is the one that will change this rotten shinobi world, for better or for worse. What? Said Madara with wide eyes, an act that he rarely partook in. You heard me, said the Shinigami with amusement clearly in his voice. I know what your plan is, Uchiha. But let me tell you that it will surely fail. Let me guess, the one that will change this shinobi world will stop me from achieving it, guessed Madara with a sigh. Yes, answered the Shinigami. Well, that plainly sucked. To know that your plan was doomed to fail before it even got started and by someone that most likely wasn't even born yet, yeah, it sucked alright. So there is nothing that I can do about this? Asked Madara. Not with your current course of action, replied the Shinigami. What is that supposed to mean? Asked Madara. The Shinigami simply chuckled once more. It should be obvious. You must also know by now that this world is a rotten one. Filled with nothing more than deceit and lies. What you're trying to do is nothing more than create another lie. That is your Tsuki no Mi. A lie. Madara hummed at that. That's the only way that this world can be saved. The only way that humanity can glimpse at what true peace is. Heh, that's if you take the easy way. Peace can be achieved through many ways, even by destruction. Understanding began to hit Madara at that. I see. He thought before a thought crossed his mind. Why are you even interested in something like this? You're the god of death after all. The Shinigami let out a laugh before he started to disappear. Who knows, but I'll be interested to know what you will do, Uchiha Madara. And I'll also overlook you summoning me this time without a payment. Next time you do though, it better be for something. Who is the one that is supposed to stop me? asked Madara. He will be an Uzumaki. Flashback, end. Madara focused solely on Naruto before he looked up at the sky. Is this the end of my role? He wondered to himself before laughter erupted throughout the entire area, stopping them all. Naruto could only sigh in irritation, knowing who the laughter belonged to. Not this guy. My, isn't this a party? Up on top of the Jubi's head, stood none other than Dark Naruto, his famous dark smirk on his face as he looked at his other self with a crazed grin on his face. Both of Naruto's locked eyes, one annoyed and the other giddy.